Call the meeting to order. It's at 6:07. The meeting of March's 2023 Public Works Committee. Go ahead, and I've got, what I've done is because I was running out of paper, I put the agenda on one side and the worksheet on the other.
All right.
So that's a new listed, or the
That's
minutes.
this one, right?
Yeah, that's the minutes, not the worksheet. That's the worksheet, that's the minutes. I'm sorry. So I'll go ahead and, do we have enough to approve?
The minutes is, it shows October 7, 2020.
Yes, that was last time. Oh, mine
That was
says
2
March.
years ago? Should be 2022.
I got March.
On the minutes.
Well, I think I printed off the wrong set of minutes, guys.
Let's see.
No, I just put the wrong date on it.
I think so.
I didn't put 2023. That's supposed to be 2023 because it's the right
This
minutes.
is, I think, what was discussed.
Yeah. Yeah, it was 2022. My apologies.
And down below, there's another, probably needs to be corrected to 2022 also, for November.
Yep. How that happened, I'm not sure. Okay. So that would be probably the two corrections on the minutes.
With those corrections, I move that we accept the minutes. Approve the minutes.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye. Adjust, okay. All right, so that's good. Let's go ahead and, any public comment? Hearing none, I will say item number 3, subcommittee report and further discussion on city drainage from Mylan. I reached out to Mylan and hoping he was going to be here. And again, he's very busy with his job. He's gotten more work and less people to do it with, so he's pretty tied up. But I can go ahead and kind of give a quick overview on that. So what Mylan has done with this is he's reached out to Utah State University. I started to say University of Utah, so my apologies. And they sent a team down here, kind of, well, not kind of, but exactly the same as BYU's Capstone. And they're kind of looking at all the drainage in the upper part of the city, like the Broad Hollow, the Spring, where we've got these runoff problems, and looking for some low-cost mitigation to see if we can solve some of that. We had a meeting with them, I believe, in January with the Utah State folks.
That sounds right.
And they were just starting their semester. And so they were going to go ahead and give us an update probably towards the end of March. So we should be looking to hear forward from them over the next little while. And the idea is to come up with weeks low cost, like maybe we can put straw berms in the ditch or rock berms to slow the energy down. And then the big thing is at the bottom of the hills at the corners, maybe put a storm box or something in there that while it won't catch all the water, it may catch a lot of the debris. So instead of having debris flowing across the roads, we can just have water, and it may be as simple as coming out once a year or whatever the case might be, and vacuuming out those pits, to get the dirt and stuff out of it. So that's kind of the way we've been going. And I know that it got a little bit more involved with that. So I don't know where exactly that's at. So we should have more on that towards the end of March when they give us an update. The other idea is to see and dovetail this into the bigger city-wide, city/county drainage system that we have that we're looking at. That's something that Ted's organization is looking at. And I think we're working with the city of Elk Ridge and the county on that. Is that correct, on the drainage?
I think it was Salem and.
It was Salem, not Elk Ridge. You're exactly right. My apologies.
County and Salem?
Yeah, to try and control some of the water, because with all the new construction along the way of Salem, it's complicating things a little bit on drainage. So that's probably going to be more of the big ticket item that happens. So anyway, that's that in a nutshell.
Do we have any idea on the BYU Capstone where they're at?
Um, I know they gave us a quote, so there was some financing involved with that one, if I remember right, because they were going to need some funds to do their portion of it. Has it been before the council as of yet? I've not seen it on the council agendas at all. So I'm not sure if anything has been done at this point, from a financial or budgetary aspect of everything. I'm sorry.
Wait, I'm pretty sure we approved the finances for it, it was in the threshold of the aircraft approved.
Okay,
And they're doing two separate projects, one's for the road, a road fee analysis study project, and the other is drainage focusing on Rock Hollow in that area.
now, is the road fee, is that like an impact fee or is it something else?
Now, recently in the legislative session, well, Pleasant Grove had adopted a road fee that is charged on a utility bill to every resident.
Okay.
Just like a storm drainage fee.
Yeah, I remember.
So PG and Mapleton both did. PG didn't do it right. They thought Mapleton did. But a court has ruled in PG's favor that it was able to be done and the way they were doing it was correct. So they're gonna go ahead and doing it. The mayor wanted us to look at possibly adopting something similar, whether it's $3 or $5 a month, that would be tacked onto everyone's utility bill. That money would then go directly to just making road improvements. That way we could actually have some money saved up, help pay for.
Okay, I do remember some discussion at that one of the council meetings. Yeah. Okay, and that is, of course, different than the stormwater studies.
Right,
But
those both are being, headed by Jones and DeMille, and Ted Nicholson is.
Okay. $3 a month. Probably take like 5 years just to pay for the engineering cost on it. I don't know exact number on that, but you know what I'm saying, so.
You're looking at additional, possibly, if you did it on every existing property and not just residents, if you just did it on resident bills, yeah, I mean, you're probably looking at $7 a month and times 500 bills. So you're looking at an additional
$35,000.
$41,000 a year, $50,000 a year that you bring into the budget that could solely be used just to pay for, you know, you could save it for 5 years and do this section of road. Or,
Right.
it's just one thought of a way to help finance something.
Along those lines, I mean, I'm just speaking as a resident now, not as a, you know, I'm not in a position that collecting on that, especially on developed homes, I'd almost just have it set, put it back into my taxes. If that's possible, just me personally. That way everybody will get hit on it with the taxes.
Well, I think the idea was you wouldn't be putting it on, you'd only be putting it on existing homeowners.
Right.
Bills. Collecting with our utility bills is pretty easy. I mean, we're tapped out pretty much in how much we can bond for. We're tapped out in a sense of how much we can raise our taxes. So we gotta get creative.
Okay. Sounds fair. Well, thanks for the update on that. Okay.
I'd like to suggest for our next meeting that Ted make some further inquiry with BYU and maybe have a little report, whether he's here or whether he can maybe do a little write-up as to where they're at and some projections for their completion of what they're doing, if that's possible for them to.
Yeah, I think so. And we talked at the meeting last week about our committee interacting with Ted, because if there's billing involved in it. So that was something that, it was a good suggestion, and pretty much what I was thinking that David brought, it's maybe something that we work through Corbett, because Corbett's got the authority to interact with them, where we probably don't if it includes billing. So anything that's non-billing, I think he'd be helping us with, but if it comes to billing, we probably need to have Corbett do that. So, but
Either way.
yeah, and then Corbett can just report to us.
Get a report from
Yeah.
Alliance where they're
Okay.
at on those studies.
Ted could probably just handwrite the report or give it to Wayne when he's here on Tuesdays.
Well, there you go. Or you can do it too. Good point. Because you're here in for most of that anyway.
We talk about it in staff meeting every week, so, and we've been on those.
And then I'm sure that Corbett knows what's going on. If he was here tonight, instead of as a doctor, he would probably be able to update us on it as is anyway. Okay, that sounds good. Okay, if there's no more on that, let's go ahead and talk about the discussion on public works priorities and something to present to the city council. I did go ahead and present the annual report, the fourth annual report, because I hadn't been doing it to the council. And we talked about public works projects, and the mayor asked that we try and attach some numbers to it, you know. And so I said, well, that's why we'll have a meeting and we can get those numbers to him for budget presentation. So I went ahead and I printed off, and that's this one here. Wayne's got some projects that he remembers from the Public Works from 2021. And I've got this page here, which is pretty much a repeat from last year. I took a couple of things off. Big one I took off was the storage building, simply because it's really on the front burner now, or at least it's on the back burner. So I don't know if the stove's been turned on yet, but at least it's on the burner. So, so I didn't bother bringing that up because it's been brought to the council's attention on numerous occasions. So,
So Mark, this list of 5,
Yeah.
it came from our previous list from last year.
from last year, that's exactly.
Any input from the council or the mayor on
I
this yet, or?
I don't, well, and let me state again, last year, I don't know if anything got put in, because we had a new council in play and everything. And so, but it was still presented from last year and 2 years ago. So that's
Okay.
where we're at.
And
So
then this 2021 Public Works to-do list, this is from Wayne.
this is from Wayne,
This is
correct?
his recollection of other things we had talked about.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, and she's got something she wanted to point out, or,
Just on number 2, there seems to be some confusion there. The $40,000 that we're going to have to pay is associated with the Maple Canyon well.
right, did I not say that?
Well,
Hollow.
it's complete unfinished items on the Broad Hollow. There are a few items that need to be completed. One big ticket item that will need to be done is the 3-phase power upgrade.
That's the big ticket item.
That's the big ticket
Yeah.
item. The other one, I guess I would put it in 2 sections. One, you've got the Broad Hollow wall, and then you've got the Maple Canyon. Maple Canyon is upgrades, and our portion is going to be around,
Yeah, I said that.
It's
Okay.
there, but it's under, it kind of gets lost.
It's in my,
under the heading of Broad
it's
Hollow.
kind of in my comments.
yeah, so you might want to separate those out, where you have one being Broad Hollow, one
Yeah.
being Maple
And-
Canyon.
And I really wasn't, I think what I was trying to do was just make a note on that, is we needed a budget for Broad Hollow, but this year we got hit for that $40,000. And I think I was just trying to
Okay.
put that as an asterisk. So,
Yeah.
Okay, and I
So
just
just keep
didn't,
those 2 separate.
but I didn't really.
The Maple
separate.
Canyon, we don't have any choice on,
Right, we're on the hook
unfortunately.
for $40,000, yeah, or 40 plus or minus.
Probably 50.
Is it, did it end up being $140,000 for
Well,
the,
ours is 59 or 49% of the cost.
I thought it was 40. My understanding it was 40, well, whatever it is.
Yeah, I would say closer to 50.
Okay,
Nothing comes
that-
in
I was-
ever under cost.
Yeah, I was using the 40%, but that's
Like
what,
that.
that's what Corbin keeps telling me is
Yeah.
40%. So I went with, but whatever it is, it's going to be, it's going to be money that is, need to be spent. We got no choice on that one. So that may affect our ability to put money towards the Broad Hollow this year. That's kind of where it's at. But one comment I would like to make on this, and it's not a positive comment, I might add. We had a bunch of money left over from the Broad Hollow project that we spent to finish the water line projects on the road. Along Maple and along Homestead, I think. It's the second road up is Homestead, I can't remember which one's which. So we spent a lot of leftover Broad Hollow well money for that. So I just, we already did.
There's no way we could, because
We-
we have a complete.
We did.
It's a separate category.
What
We
it
can't
is
get
the
into
state, yeah, but the state, they talked to the state, and the state said, well, if you're done with the well, go ahead and spend that money elsewhere rather than give it back. I remember that very, very painfully in the weekly meetings we had when we were doing the road projects, because I kind of give a little protest to that. I remember that. You can double check and make sure that I'm not completely up in the
When
night.
was that have been?
Huh?
I've been under
When was it?
Paul, and I don't remember if we-
So
I'm trying to remember if
I don't know, I don't
remember
remember.
any details about that.
Yeah, I don't know if it went before the council or not. I know I know that we had to spend money to finish off Maple, tie into Maple and tie into, we used that money.
To get through that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the money was spent, it was spent, but it's just now that we've spent that, we basically borrowed from Peter to pay Paul.
Now we don't have any money to,
Now we got to steal from somebody to pay Paul back, or to pay Peter back. Yeah, that's kind of the drawback to that.
okay.
And, you know, and it was determined that was, the money was, but the bottom line is, yeah, we spent money from Broad Hollow that, you know, and if I'm wrong, I'm going to apologize, but I definitely remember those discussions.
Okay.
So anyway, so as Jody said, you know, that's an ongoing budget that we need to look at. This is going to come back and eventually, you know, we're going to have a day of reckoning on that eventually with that single phase power. So that's something we're going to have to look at. When, I can't say, but we know that, you know, first off, when you're running a large horsepower motor like that, I don't remember how big the horsepower motor is on a single phase, it's very inefficient, you know, because you're drawing a lot of amps and everything else. So it's better to run it on three phase. So cost wise, it's costing us money and energy losses simply by using single phase instead of three phase. And
And is that when it says complete Broad Hollow well?
yeah,
is
that's
that what we're
item,
talking about?
item
is
number 2, yes.
Going to a three-phase?
Yes, well, that's a big part of it. Yeah, that's the
That's
big
part of it,
ticket
okay.
item. So I did talk with Corbin on that the other day, and he thought 100,000 was a little much, but he says, let's just go ahead and use $100,000.
What else goes into complete Broad Hollow?
That's
well?
the big one. So when you complete the three phase, you would have to run either 2 or 3 more cables up. I can't remember if we got one cable going up right now that is a single phase going up there. It might be more cost effective. You can use smaller cable with 3 phase because you're not putting as much current through each, you know, you're dividing it up by 3 instead of 1. So you can put smaller cable. But if, let's just say it's 500 feet from where we got to run, I'm just using that as a number. To run 3 cables up would be 1,500 feet. But if we've already got 500 feet of cable, it might make sense to just run 1,000 feet of the bigger cable. And it might be a little more cost effective to do that. So I'm not quite sure. And then we would need 3 transformers, 1 for each phase. And then we'd have to do some adjustments or replace. I think we just modify the VFD so it will work on 3 phase instead of single phase. So that would be the big ticket cost on that.
Now, I wonder if there's a way to do an analysis of just a cost analysis on that, option A and option B, you know, the cost of the cable, the cost of the
That-
labor, cost of the savings. When do we cross?
Right. And
over
if
the
that would be
profitability?
simple. I mean, everything's going to be the same except for the cable. Is it cheaper to run? You just get a linear foot estimate on the cable and say, is it cheaper to run 3 small ones?
Then can we run it through existing conduit?
And the conduit's in.
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
and
minimal labor.
Yeah, so, and it may be, and that's another question to look at, it may be that the conduit's not bigg enough to handle the bigger cable, so we'd have to see, so,
And then is there if we stay with the single phase generator, does it wear out faster than a tri-phase?
no, it won't, because you've got a variable speed drive in there that changes the frequency. What it does is it takes the AC power and turns it into DC power, and then it rectifies it again back into 3-phase power. And so what it does, it allows you to change the voltage on the machine so that you can run the machine at different speeds.
Okay, and that's hence the efficiency.
And
We're
that's,
not going full bore, we're going,
yeah, and well,
Okay.
but the current draw on a single phase current is, because of line loss and everything else, is going to be a little bit more, I won't say a little bit more, a lot less efficient than running a three-phase. So instead of having, you know, on the three lines, you might have an 8 or 10% voltage drop. Where if you're running the single phase, you may have a 30 to 40%
Oh, wow.
voltage drop.
Okay.
So you've got that. Think of three, you know, so instead, think of it as a freeway or highway, we got three lanes going and a light car versus having one lane packed full of cars. I mean, that's probably, that's a lousy analogy, but that's what I've come up with off the top of my
Can we
head.
still use the motor?
Yeah, because the
Pump?
motor and pump is already three-phase. And so that, and the VFD converts it to three, it converts single phase to three-phase. Now you have a really large VFD to do that, but the pump and everything would still be the same. And we're not at risk of damaging the pump the way we're doing it. We're just, we may be at risk of burning out the VFD or some cabling. That would be the biggest cost. Hey, you made it.
We got lucky.
So in the analysis, the cost analysis, it really, maybe this is a little bit overly simplistic, but to help my limited brain capacity, it's really cost of cable, little bit of labor to install cable versus the cost of the power loss, comparing those two, seeing what.
Yeah, there's that. And of course, then there's the cost of operation is going to be less with that.
With the
So
three-phase.
with the three-phase.
Okay.
And then you've got to have transformers. And so I
Oh,
think
that's
that
right.
if you got to have
Transformers,
three,
other equipment.
they have, no matter what, you have to have three transformers. But it's going to be, fortunately, it's underground cable, so it's not affected by heat. If you got like cable hanging in the air, the heat really sucks the efficiency out of it because it's buried, that it's not going to be as bad. And it can run like this for 20 years, who knows? But it's just something that, you know, is ultimately going to need to be done. And so what we probably need to do is, you know, and we kind of went to number two and didn't really cover number one, but what we need to do is just keep it on the radar. Say, hey, guys, we can't, you know, let's not let this be a surprise to us 5-10 years down the road, or
Yeah.
whatever the case might be. We're talking about the Broad Hollow well.
Yep, I'm up to speed.
Okay, so that's the big thing, and we just need to be aware of it. We were talking earlier, because we're already having to spend $40,000+ on the Maple Canyon well. When I say we, the city as a whole,
Yep.
probably not going to be a lot of money spent on the Broad Hollow well this year.
Well, I think we'll just have to look at the budget.
Yeah.
It comes back to, I think, your point of, or the mayor's request in the last council meeting of
Yeah.
what is the prioritization?
Right, and so, and I tried to attach a budget number to it of $100,000. So I know that's probably going to be, you know, $150,000 out of the water system this year. That may be a big bite.
So Mark, on that then, and Ben, what would be most helpful to the council? I mean, we could continue to raise the issue so it doesn't fall off the radar until it's boom, big problem.
Until it does fall off the radar, until it does.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, then we at least say, it's not like we didn't tell you.
They told so. Would it also be helpful to run a cost analysis to say, you know, how much does it cost? Again, option A versus option B, or does that change
Yeah,
so
we can
much
do
that?
that. We can do that. I
you
mean, what
know-
you're saying, just a cost analysis of running the well as is and the risk of running it as
Yeah.
is versus the advantages, yeah, do a cost.
Yeah, so you guys can
cost-
know what is it that we have to find room for if we
Yeah.
decide to do it.
A cost.
Well, and
benefit
I think
analysis,
it-
we can do that.
It does. It comes down to, you know, what do we feel is the most important as the Public Works, you know, committee. But also, you know, I think it's almost two lists, right? One is urgency of the project and one is what is viable,
Yeah.
right? So from a financial end and we need to do this now. Something like the Broad Hollow well, you know, that comes in, as you know, a little different financially because that actually can come from the water fund,
But it's an enterprise fund.
right?
yes.
So
Which
it
is a lot.
it can
juicier.
it is juicier. It also it helps us not have to take the burden off of the general fund
Right.
because the general fund is a far more tapped.
And the other
Set of
advantage,
funds than
the other
the
advantage of the
fund.
water fund is because it's an enterprise fund, you're not limited on how much money you can keep in there. So we can put as much money as we need to and hold it in reserve. So we don't have to, you know, with the general fund, you're only allowed, I know they've
Correct.
changed all that. I don't know exactly what the percentage is. now.
Yeah,
So who would prepare that kind of cost analysis?
I can work with Corbett on that.
Okay.
So,
work with Corbett and Janet and then Mike Taylor with the finance committee.
well, what I'll do is I'll work with Corbett on putting an analysis together. and then we can present the numbers to them. You know, and again, what I like to do from this committee is, you know, we're not decision makers.
Right. Or
Our
information
our
gathers.
goal is to give the decision makers as much information as they can to help them make the decisions. And so that's a good point. We can do, very good point, actually. We can do a cost analysis to say, we can run it for, like it is, for this long, at this cost. This is what it would cost to upgrade. What is the payback? What are the risks of running it the way it is versus the risk of, you know, or the benefit of upgrading? So that's a very good idea.
I hadn't thought of this before, but that $40,000 that is going to be involved with Maple Canyon, can that come out of the water fund?
That's where it'll be coming from, I'm
So
certain
it
of.
won't be a normal budget issue per se, that I was concerned, geez, where are we gonna come up with another 40 grand?
Yeah.
You know, for Maple Canyon, but if that can come out of the water fund, that we have quite a collection and some savings there.
Yeah, and I have no
then it's not
idea.
a big issue.
I have no
That's the
idea.
biggest issue.
I don't have no idea what the contingency in the water fund is. You know, that's one thing that I have pushed my whole entire career is you've got to put a contingency in these funds. So when stuff like this happens, you have money to do it. And I don't know where we're at on that. I gotta be honest. I have no idea what contingencies are. And that'd be a good question to your budget. Hey, do we have any contingency for this? Are we gonna have to
Yeah.
raise rates to do this? You know, so that's something that,
Well, it comes back to, on our line items, we have a depreciation number.
which is a contingency, which is the same as a contingency.
As long as we're actually pulling money
As
for
long as we're
said
putting it,
depreciation.
as long as we're putting it in the.
I think right now, per what I've learned, is that is articulated as more of an accounting than an actual savings. So we're depreciating per what is the dollar value of our assets, not we're taking that depreciation number and putting it somewhere for replacement. So that's where the difference is coming from. I
Is
do
that
not
an
think there's a
appropriate
saving.
Way to do it though?
The state, in what we've done talking to the state, they have said they would like cities to operate that way, meaning depreciate your assets and actually have that be an expensed line item that then goes into a savings account.
That depreciation needs to be expensed as a.
Correct. So it's not a state
that's-
law,
That's the way we've always
it's
done
best practice. And we would like to get there. We're currently not there.
I disagree.
Hey, there's Corbin. Hey, Corbin's back.
I've been here for a few minutes only.
it. Oh, good. So you've heard, so now you can correct us on everything.
No, Corbin and I have had many discussions on this. And
Well, but
we're-
you're depreciating that depreciation every year, at least this year. Last year, last few years, you've got $110,000 deficit that you're taking out of that account. It's going somewhere. It's not just a value used to offset your taxes. You're taking 110,000 out of your water account, your water enterprise fund. You've taken $110,000 out this year, last year. It's going somewhere.
You don't know where it's going?
I have no idea. I've never been able to get an answer. I always just get the standard. It's not money.
Well, it is.
So,
I mean,
well,
and if- I guess my point is that if it's the cities that we've, for some reason, decided not to do that, we need to decide to do it. And to account for it, put it aside so we know what money is there and it's available for these kinds of things. And it's not a shell game, but that money's set aside for water-related projects. And it's up to the council, the mayor, say, okay, we're going to do that.
so,
And let's do it.
so Corbin, I'm gonna try and dumb it down a little bit here, for my sake. So I think what you're saying, and this is just an example. Let's just say the city on the water fund brings in $1 million for the year. But the city only spends on the water maintenance, your cost and all the costs, 900,000. There's $100,000 profit that the city has made over the year. The question is, where is that money? I think your answer is you don't know.
No, well, I don't know that either, but your depreciation line item is withdrawn from the water account, just like your utility bills are, just like wages, just like benefits. It's a line item that goes against your income. Where is it?
Well, that's exactly, that's kind of where I'm, so, you know, bottom line is, we were just talking about, we got, we got $100,000 that we got to spend plus or minus on the well, the Broad Hollow well, and where's the money, where are we gonna get the money to pay for it? Do we have it? Do we need to come up with another option?
100,000 for the Broad Hollow well?
Yeah, to get the 3-phase and the new transformers and all that. Remember I talked to you on that on, I think, Friday?
Yeah,
I thought that was a little high, but it was a good number for the budget discussion.
right. Yeah, I've requested it. I requested it last year too.
Okay,
Unless, see, we need, if we're looking to establish priorities, we need to have an understanding of, okay, that's coming out of the water fund. It can't go to roads, it can't go to other things other than water-related funds. And that will help us then make some recommendations for priorities. If we know that there's X number of dollars there, how do we recommend priority spending? But we need to know that that money's available in the water fund to establish, the council needs to know that as much as anybody, to know that that money's available. Okay, and what are our priorities then as far as spending that money? How much do we want to leave there? How much do we want to keep set aside? Do we want to spend, we're going to be spending $40,000 of it. Does that, whatever is there, where does the $100,000 for the phase 3 fit into that? Is there not enough money for that this year because we're spending 40 grand on the upgrades to the Maple Canyon well? All those things factor into some analysis to help establish what the priorities are.
Understood. I mean, again, maybe a correction. Mark, the state does regulate enterprise funds. You're required to show a minimum 2% profit and a maximum 6% profit. And so you have to, and that's easy enough to do because all you got to do is do work to keep your income from being more than 6%.
right. We're allowed to make, but we're not limited as to how much money we can hold in that fund. We're limited to how much we can make, but we're not limited to how much we can save.
Right, but it has to be saved for a purpose. You can't just,
It has to be saved as an enterprise fund, yes.
well, but not just as an enterprise fund. It has to be saved for a purpose in the enterprise fund. So I have to justify those numbers every year.
Which is why it's important that we have the depreciation, right?
Yeah.
So we're saying that is our goal.
But that depreciation is designed to replace the asset when it's worn out.
Right.
Exactly.
You should literally, what I used to, all the workshops I've gone to and the education I've got and the way I presented on a water system, you should literally plan on replacing your water system every 20 years. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean take everything out and put something new in. Water lines may last a little longer. Well pumps may not last as long. Valves may not last as long, but the cost of replacing that should be basically replaced into your fund for every 20 years. So
And
that you don't,
that's what that depreciation is your savings account to do that when the asset is worn out.
correct, exactly.
We
But
have all that set up. Oh, sorry. Go ahead,
But
Gordon.
in 2014, you took out a bond to replace the water main in Woodland Hills Drive. You didn't use your depreciation or your savings account. 2016, we did the same thing. We took out a bond. 2019 or 2020, when we did this last one, we took out a bond. So you're not using that savings account. Why?
We
Another
did that,
question
we did
is,
that in rates.
can that savings account money be used to help repay the bond payments? I would assume it can.
Yes,
No, you figured that into we have figured those bond payments into the rate structure. We're not using the savings account to pay those bond payments. You're using the rate structure. It's a line item also
I know,
in your enterprise fund.
but could it be used if
Absolutely.
if the
It-
city chose to do it?
It should be. The Water Enterprise Fund is supposed to be self-sustaining, just like any other enterprise fund.
It's
It's
like
supposed to
you're
pay-
saying,
Yeah,
if we had an extra $400,000 or $500,000 sitting in that fund, we didn't know what to do with, yes, we could actually use it to reduce the bond payment.
okay.
Yeah.
So the question for me still is there actually money every year? Corbett, you're saying you believe so, but you're just not sure where, right? So
I've
if
ne-
if
I've
kind
never
of
been able to
schedule,
Yeah, I've never been able to get a straight answer on what your depreciation account looks like.
Ben, is that something that you can help with?
I've been trying, but yes.
Where's the obstacle?
I think,
I have been on the phone with Polaris and the state to try and find out where those funds are with Lori. Polaris has given me an answer contrary to what Corbett's saying. I'm running the numbers right now again. Because when we were talking with Polaris, they clearly had something misunderstood. So I'm learning here as well.
Help me better understand, Dolores.
I
The
guess
Accounting
one of the things that we need to do, everybody's hung up on depreciation and they treat depreciation like it's depreciating a brand new truck to keep from paying taxes on it. Quit calling it a depreciation fund. Call it your savings account. Call it whatever.
I call it a contingency fund,
Perfect.
because that's exactly what it is, and that's what I've always heard them call contingency funds.
So in the corporate world, your depreciation is you depreciate assets and you use that money that's set aside for that to renew an asset when the time comes.
So
So,
how are you going to do that when the water mains are worn out? You're taking the money. How are you going to do it if it's not in a savings account somewhere?
well, no, that's right. And
Raise rates
that's the
on a
issue.
bond, yeah.
That's the issue. To
So-
keep tabs of that and know how much is there, that it's not getting played with or moved around to someplace else where it shouldn't be.
So Corbett, let me kind of shift gears a little bit on that. Yeah, I don't know how long you're on, but, Paul brought up an excellent suggestion is, what is the cost benefit analysis to keeping the well in the single phase, alignment that it's in now versus upgrading it to three phase? What is the risk and the benefit of doing one or not doing the other?
Well, long term, you got this cost savings for three-phase power over.
Right, the efficiencies of three phase over this.
when does it cross over? When does, like, is it 3, 4, 5 years out where it's like, okay, we've now, we won. There's more coming in because we went to three phase. We recouped the cost of the transition by saving money on the energy costs, right? Is that?
Pretty much, because three
That's
phase is
one.
much.
That's one of the factors, but you'd have to do a cost analysis. I mean, I'm keeping track of the numbers, the actual numbers, but not in the sense that you could compare that number to of single phase to three phase. So that would have to be done, but we have all of the data. We just haven't gone through the exercise to prove it. Another thing you have to consider though, is that we're actually over maxed out on the three-phase power or the single phase power that's up there right now.
That's the other, thank you. That was the other thing. I knew I was missing something because right now we are at the top end of our single phase limit. That's
No,
right.
we're over it.
Yeah, so.
We've
that's-
exceeded it.
Yeah, so we almost have to do it simply because we've got a 20 amp load on a 15 amp fuse, for lack of a better choice of words.
And the consequence of that, I'm the idiot.
You burn up a
Burn
line,
up.
you burn up a
Okay.
yeah, so,
Okay.
yeah, that's the consequences of that. Or
Okay,
you
so
burn-
that,
Yeah,
the big cost issue.
yeah, or else you end up limiting the ability of your pump because you have to turn the power down on it, turn the speed down on it. So instead of being able to, run it at full load, you may only be able to run it at 50-60% load. So the consequences on that. I knew I was missing something in that discussion, Corbett. Thank you. And another question, what is the horsepower of that pump? Do you remember, do you know?
125.
125 HP. So,
You got a 125 horsepower motor on a 167 kVA transformer.
okay.
And the math,
Yeah, that's about 5% over off the top of my head.
yep. The math doesn't work. That's why the transformer gets warm in the summertime. If you've ever been up there, you see that piece of plywood. That's my shade structure for that transformer.
Sunscreen, huh? Well, hook an air conditioner to it to keep it cool. Oh, yeah, more load. I'm teasing, okay.
So to play my role as the village idiot, let me ask this, then, I understand, whether we call it depreciation or savings or amortization, but this schedule attached to an actual account, right? Where we're taking money that's actually collected and we're moving it to this account and for the time where we have to replace the thing that it's tied to, right?
Correct.
I understand the concept there. So do we feel like we have that structure, that account set up for every area that we should in the water area? Like, apparently we probably don't have a replacement plan and account for the wiring system or the electrical system for the pump, right? That's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Where's the money gonna come from?
Right.
So would it be helpful as the Public Works Committee to look to say, what are other areas under our purview that don't have an account like that attached to it? So then have a
They all should. That depreciation should include the value of the truck that I drive. It should include the building replacement of it's not just the water main, it's everything.
The water the water system and apparatus, include labor,
Oh,
trucks,
Absolutely. It
his
should,
retirement, the whole, everything that's associated with the water system as a whole,
So it's already
water-
built.
water
into it.
meters.
It's working.
the water meters, the water meter reader, the radio, everything associated with the water system should be being depreciated. So you have a savings account to replace it when it's worn out.
Okay, good.
But not only, every asset that the city has should have something similar.
Replacement
Do it.
value, replacement
Yeah.
account.
Corbin, let me hit you,
Snowplows, absolutely. Garbage,
Let me-
garbage cans, everything.
let me ask you another quick question. I'm gonna go back to the water line install and the actual, bond we had for the well. We took some leftover funds from the well and used them on the water line, did we not?
I don't know.
I know, we certainly talked about it. We talked about, because we wanted to try and do Lower Maple and Homestead, and there was no money in that, but the state said, well, you can use this leftover bond money if you're done spending it on the well.
So this is what Chris just texted me. Says, I'm away from my office at the moment, but what I'm recalling is we didn't use all the loan from the Broad Hollow well, so the state allowed us to utilize that money for another project.
That's exactly what I'm talking
Yep.
about right there.
So I've asked him to verify that with me, and so when I hear from that, I will let you know with a
That's
confirm.
Exactly what I'm talking about.
Awesome.
But yeah,
Yep.
That's from Chris.
Yeah, that does ring a bell. Yes.
So basically, money that we could have used to upgrade the rest of this well was spent on other areas.
Okay.
In
Sure. Yeah, it was spent in water, yes, but it was not spent on what the bond was, the original bond design, because it was leftover money, rather, I think they said the energy or the cost and energy to return the leftover bond wasn't worth the effort, so just use it somewhere else. It was the way just the short version of what I remember.
Yep.
Okay.
So, but it sounds like it also was spent.
Yes, it was spent on, I just remember because we had to tie in the two rows to the new system, and I remember that's what we spent it
Yep. We've got lots of ways to spend money.
on.
Never shorts there.
So, okay,
So
so,
here's the other weird thing for me. I mean, if there's, Corbin, to your point, if there's an account, an actual account where these monies are being drawn from an actual account to this actual account, and I get the accounting that we got to find it like in our system, but we should be getting bank statements or something that indicates we
P&I,
got a lot of money in this account. We're not seeing anything like that, huh?
P&I, yeah, have we kept our rates where they should have been, or have they been too low, and we haven't been able to do it, have we been flush with money? These are all questions, I don't know the answer to any of them. Have we
So
been
when
flush
you,
and spent it elsewhere, or have we just,
But
when you
again,
look at the budget, it is there. I can even give you the line item here.
So it's in the budget, which
yeah,
might mean
so-
it stays in the account.
but it's in the
Uh,
budget
actually
as an
transfer.
expense.
So
in the
it's
budget as an expense.
6690.
Huh.
Depreciation expense.
But that's in the
Um,
expense category, correct?
Yep.
Yes, it is. And this is where we were confused, I think, with Polaris, is they were looking at it from an operations category and they did not see that it was the enterprise account. So I've got to talk to them again to get more clarity there. But it's $115,000 and 160 or 1,015,160 from last year. And then year to date, it's 42,000.
My goodness.
So last year to this year, we're talking $157,000. So yes, it potentially could be in that account, but by us, in my understanding, and this is what Corbin and I have talked about, there should be an equivalent transfer line item
Right.
associated with that 42,000 if it's being pulled, because current year to date per budget revised in February, what we just voted on, the enterprise accounts 1,500 negative from income to, now that's not the balance, that's not the bank account. That's just expenses and income on the operations account year to date is 1,500 under. So then if you go through here, you know, from the non-operational items, which is grant income and all of those types of things, now we're sitting a positive 75,500. Okay. So we're not fully in the hole per year to date, but what it is it's saying that this year, our budgeted depreciation should be $110,000. So the question is
Where's it?
where?
Yeah.
Right? And that's the answer.
Where's that $110,000
And
going?
that's unspent money, right? It's just put aside in a reserve.
Or
It's-
things like
Yes.
depreciation.
It's unspent
But-
money in the water fund.
Correct.
But if you remember, when we go through the budget each year, we talk about funds sent to savings. That's also one of our line
One of
items.
that.
That savings number's typically somewhere around 5, 10, 15, all the way up to $50,000 per account. It's not close to 110,000.
Yeah.
So
It's
there
not showing up
still is a question mark there that we need an answer.
Where's that money? And that's not our purview, I think, to answer that, but I think
It is our purview to ask.
it is our purview to ask. And one of the things that, I'll give you an example. When I first took over at Grand Water, the Water Conservancy Agency, we were flush with money, but there was some misunderstanding of where's the money coming from. We had three major funds. We had a sewer fund, we had an irrigation water fund, and we had a culinary water fund. You know, it was like one bucket, and three buckets were pouring into the one bucket, and that one bucket was running over. But we were trying to figure it out. So what we ended up finding out was, yes, our sewer bucket was filling everything up, but our irrigation bucket, which was our biggest, was not. So basically, our sewer funds were paying for the irrigation.
So wait. So the sewer bucket was filling the irrigation bucket?
Was filling the whole bucket up. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty close.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. So-
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
So the way I ended explaining it to the board was, I says, you guys can do this if that's what you choose to do. I'm just here to let you know, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And the lights went off, like they had no idea that the money, and so there was kind of a reevaluation, and there was and I says, and we're looking at building a 10 or $12 million treatment plant, but if we're taking all our funds, our excess funds, instead of putting it towards the treatment plant, we're subsidizing the irrigation. When we need to build a treatment plant, where's the money gonna come from? That's exactly what we're dealing with right now, here. That's the way I'm seeing it. Does that make sense? And I made sure that the council understood that. And I had it all in spreadsheets and everything. And once they saw it, they said, okay, we need to make some changes. Once it was brought to their attention.
Because if what Corbett's saying, Corbett, to your earlier point, that through the years we've been bonding to pay the expenses, well, then through the years we should have this depreciation account filling. We're not using it because we're bonding to pay it.
It should be growing.
And actually, there's nothing wrong with the bonding because you may not have enough money in your savings account to pay the bond. And also when it comes to interest rates and everything and inflation,
makes
Debt
sense.
debt is a good tool if used properly.
Yeah, my point though is being that this depreciation account may not be being drawn down ever because the bonding is paying those expenses that's intending to
Right.
save for. So it could just be, and so if we're not seeing this huge amount of money, maybe it's that, maybe it's, we have. other
Spending it
things-
somewhere,
Yeah,
spending it somewhere else.
and
and that's the
within the water
question.
budget.
So, yeah,
I
No,
know, it's fine.
except that it's part of the line items, so the bond payments are part of the expenses as
Right.
well as
Yeah,
the
so we track that
depreciation.
too.
Right.
So they're not canceling each other, they're compounding. And that's the piece we don't understand, right? Because they're not on another income line,
Yeah.
you know? The depreciation's not
yeah. The
an
bond,
income
the
as
bond,
well.
the
Yeah.
bond payment is considered an expense.
Correct.
Okay, so you got revenue and expense. And the revenue is obviously used to pay the expenses, just like your business. And so we take the revenue to make the bond payments. But if the expenses are X and the revenue is X plus Y, where is Y?
Right, that's the question.
But the city could be taking the depreciation expense that's accumulating and making payments on the bond with that money for this, as it's, keeping it in this category, its right category, the city could be doing that, correct?
Which
But
would,
wouldn't they show up in
they
the?
would
not
show up in the
showing that.
budget
It's
though.
an expense.
Yeah.
So unless those are differently categorized, we may not realize that the depreciation expense that's in a big tub is going to is making bond payments on the water line.
It should be, it should be in the budget. It should show in the budget that
Well,
your revenue. it should show the
remember-
expenses.
Remember, this is a budget. It's not a P&L
I gotcha.
and it's not a balance
I
sheet,
gotcha.
right? We really need those other two documents for us to answer
Right.
this
And
question.
when I say budget, I'm using that as a pretty wide term, which is going to include budget sheets and P and L. Okay, yeah, and expenses.
Well, our problem is our budget sheet that I'm looking from here does not include a P&L and a balance sheet.
I,
So that's,
we
From an
track
information
that
standpoint.
every month. We track that every month.
Well, you mentioned about last year. What about the year before that?
Yeah.
And the year before
Yeah,
that? You
So,
know,
How many years have you
accumulation of
been-
those-
Go ahead,
How many
Corbett.
How many years have you been depreciating the water asset? 30?
There should be millions somewhere.
Yeah,
Our problem is as a council, and Paul, you know all about this. Every single month, we are given
credit card statements, we are given bank accounts, and we are given the balance, the budget. That paints 40% of the picture. Because I don't have a corollary between checks or credit card statement payoffs attached directly to bank statements and their impact on budget line items kicking out to the numbers I'm given. I'm missing all those linkages. So we're given just random puzzle
I
pieces.
can't help you there. I know.
I tell you for context,
Yeah, I know.
but also the struggle, the thing we're trying to resolve.
So that's kind of what we need, and this is probably something that, we can bring up to our attention. These are questions we have.
Yeah.
Help us answer them. And maybe something that the budget committee needs to take a close, hard look at. And if we can bring this to, hey, we need some, help us understand. Maybe they'll say, oh yeah, this is what, and we'll say, oh, thank you. We missed that part. That's, I think, what we need to do. Okay.
That's a good idea. Let's kick it to the finance committee.
well, you're right, but they're likely maybe inquiring, wondering about the same questions that we're asking.
Okay.
If the council doesn't have the information, the budget committee doesn't have it. So it's something that benefits everybody if this can get
Yeah.
It
straightened
needs to
out.
be, it needs to, if, like I said,
Understood.
may need to be brought to the surface. Hey, we, what's going on here? So, and it may be that everybody understands what's going on. And nobody, so,
Likely not.
okay, so, and it gets back to, so we kind of jumped into number 2, big time on these priorities. So let me take a quick note here. system. We also talked a little bit, I'm going to jump up to number one because we went straight to number two. Number one is kind of the same thing. I don't think it's nearly as critical at this point. We're probably okay in the water rights, but I just think it's a ball we need to keep our eye on. Is all, just put some money away. Again, that could be part of the depreciation. I'm calling it contingency. It's the same word, but or part of the budget. It might be part of the yearly budget. Hey, we need to put a, $4,000 or $5,000 into this account. So when we need to spend this money, we have it. That's kind of like the piggy bank for your new toy or whatever you want to call it. So just some money to do that. So I think that, water rights are going to be a challenge in the future. I've been beating this drum for a long time because I've seen it for a long time. And it could be a problem. I mean, it could be starting to say, hey, we're going to start, not litigating, it's not the word I'm looking for. It's, starts with an A.
Arbitration.
Arbitrating it. Thank you. We're going to go into an arbitration on some of this stuff. And,
We better have our ducks in a
we
row.
better have our ducks in a row. Yeah,
Fast.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Okay. So they're doing it. They did Southeast Utah where I was at, and that was a mess. They were asking people to cap their wells and everything else and making sure water rights, if you weren't proving that you were using this water right, and if you couldn't prove that you were going to use this water right, they were taking the water right back from you. Say, it's not, you had so much time to use this right, you're not doing it, and you haven't been able to justify what you're going to do with it. We need it elsewhere because it's over. Quick, I know we got all night. Quick overview of what's happened with Utah state water law. As everybody knows, the state of Utah owns all the water in the state. Okay. Individuals, municipalities, they own the right to use it. Term called over appropriation, especially on the Colorado River. When they did this, they started saying, okay, we know that Farmer John, okay, is asking for 100 acre feet of water. We know he's not going to use 100 acre feet of water. We'll give it to him. We'll take it back later. Well, they did it with Farmer John. They did it with Farmer Jane, and they did it with this company and that company. And pretty quick, there was a lot more water right appropriated to the users in the state than there was actually water. And so now they're having to come back and say, whoa, what have we done here? How are we going to clean this mess up? Kind of like the bucket thing. And so they started doing a lot of arbitration on all that, and it's saying, okay, let's do it. And so they've taken water rights away from folks. Now, as a municipality or a public water system, they come back and said, okay, you've got water rights that are 40 years old that you still have not used. Okay, you need to start proving to us that you can use this water within the next 50 years. And so cities were being forced to write up, and I thought we were in that position, but none of our water rights were that old. So we're put in a position to say, okay, well, here's our growth rate, here's our current water rights. This is, and we could demonstrate that at a 5% growth rate or a 6% growth rate and the amount of water that we had available, that we would grow into those water rights. Okay, and so they would say, good. And if you couldn't do that, and they're going to say, well, we may be looking for this water elsewhere. So if and moving it elsewhere. So that's what they were going to do. They may come back and start doing that here. I can't say that they're going to, but they will, because the beauty of it is with municipal rights, they can hang on to them. They don't have to give them up after the 7 years of non-use or 5 years of non-use that farmers and industrial folks have to use. So that's kind of where we could be at. So that's why I think it's important that we stay on top of our water rights.
Yeah.
No argument with it.
Unfortunately, the city attorneys are experts in water law.
And they, and the greatest statement I ever heard about water is it flows downhill or towards money, whichever force is greater. Okay, so
I know right now, Corbett, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but our paper water is in a pretty good spot. Is that true, Corbett?
Yeah, I mean, we've done, Logan Riley has done quite a bit of work on it. We've got a lot of water that's in non-use. We're required to keep enough water for all of the approved building lots, as well as keep enough water in use for the approved connections to the system. So, but yeah, Logan's done a pretty good job of keeping track of it. I don't know that it's complete, but it's pretty comprehensive.
Actually, Wayne did a pretty good report on that a couple of years back. I read it. It was well written.
Yeah.
And what it showed was we had a current, I'm just going to use number, but it was somewhere around 900 acre feet of water, real close to that. And we were looking at the water that we were using, how much we were using and how much we have proven up. You've got approved water rights and you got to have proofed water rights. The approved water rights is the water you're going to use. The proofed is the water you are using. And it seemed like there was a little bit of a discrepancy, which we had a little bit more.
We're currently using some of our vacant lots paper.
Exactly. But,
Right.
and
So
as
if-
what
if we
happens,
build out,
as we build out, we
we'll
move,
over.
we transfer that over to a proofing. And so we were real close. And I think, if I remember right, I got that report somewhere on my computer. I can go back and find it because you did a very good job of it. And I think we were really close. I think we were like within 1 or 2% of our required water right and our approved water right. And as we started growing, we knew we were going to have to start proving up some more rights. And that was 2 or 3 years ago. Again, Wayne, you did an excellent job on that. I got to say, you really summed it up well. And so the other thing we looked at is we looked at build out now or approved lots now and approved water rights. We did have a little bit of a surplus, but
Good.
they're not proved. They're only approved. They're not proved rights. So we need to just do that. And that's what Riley Water can do for us. And that's why we need to say every 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years, we need to go to these guys and say, hey, I think we need to maybe move some of this water over into the proof section. And that's why we would use this 5,000 or 2,000 or whatever, once every 5 years to make that transfer and stay on top of it. So that's the whole reason for using that. Did
Perfect.
that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I'll see if I can find that report, Wayne. I'm sure you have it because you sent it to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very well written. I was impressed.
Can I add to that a little bit, Mark?
Sure. Yeah, please do, Corbett.
Also in that, for a private user has to prove that they can get it out of the ground and put it to beneficial use. A city doesn't have to do that on all the water rights that the city owns, because you can't do that for houses that are not built.
Right, we had the advantage to hang on to it. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Right. You can hang on to it without proofing it, because you have to hold that water in reserve to make sure that you have the water when the houses are built in the future.
But at the same time, you can't use it unless you have proved it. So if we
Right.
proofed up, let's just say, we've got proofed up 500 acre feet, and we've been using 400 acre feet. So we still have a little bit of 100 acre feet of wiggle room, but as we start increasing our demands, we end up using a 520 or 550 acre feet. Then we need to proof up that other 50 acre feet. That's kind of what we're referring
And
to.
we have the right,
Yeah, we just
to
haven't.
do that.
We just haven't
it
transferred.
just needs to move,
Right.
the paperwork and
Correct.
so forth.
Yeah.
And the municipalities are well, I guess counties have that.
Public water
authority
systems.
too. Public entities are the only ones that have the authority from the state to do that. A farmer doesn't. He's faced with having to use his whole water right
Or lose.
or possibly lose some of it
So.
if it's not being
So
used.
that's exactly correct. So anyway, that's why that continued water rights update is on this priority list. It's just something we need to keep track. That's why we put it there last year. And that's why, at least I feel it's still important to keep it on this year. Like I said, we're really just rinse and repeating here.
Water is,
Okay.
I know on my list, it's number one.
Okay.
So
So,
making sure we hold everything.
yeah, and then, so number 3 on the list I emailed you guys real quick was, well monitoring. Corbett and I have had some massive discussions on this. How much water are we going to draw down? How much, so the wells, we've got monitors in the wells. So we know how much the wells are moving up and down. Well, what we don't know is what effect that's having on the entire aquifer. And on top of that, what effect is Salem, Woodland, or not Woodland Hills, but Elk Ridge and Payson and everybody else that's using that same bucket. how much are they affecting this? So some kind of monitoring system to say, well, yeah, the term that shows it, and you want to keep it away from your wells because you have what's called a cone of influence or drawdown. When it does it, it affects the area around the well, but it doesn't affect the entire aquifer. So you want to be able to say what's going on. So we've had 5 or 6 dry years. It would have been nice to have this in place a couple of years ago. We had 5 or 6 dry years. How much drawdown did we get? Now that we've had a really good wet year, how much is going to go up? How long is it taking to come up? How long is it taking to draw down? And so again, I'm thinking 20 years ahead because that's what you got to do. If you're not setting yourself up, or excuse me, if you're not planning 20 years ahead, you're setting yourself up for failure, plain and simple.
Yes.
So, I mean, like Corbett says, what's happened to the money we spent 20 years ago? We don't know. That's kind of the short version.
Hey, Mark, on that one, I know we had talked about this before, and it's tangentially related. We had talked about, is there a way that we can, probably not develop, but pay for software that would, on a house by house basis, say like, hey, we had a spike of 15% at this house. We ought to send them an email. that says-
Lori
Yeah,
does
we
that
already got
monthly.
that in our
Oh,
system.
it does.
Lori pulls in anybody who's hit a certain abnormal amount and calls.
It's already in there.
Because we had that several years ago. We had a main, when we were out of town and it broke and it just flooded for like 6 days. It was a massive
Yeah.
bill when we got back and
Yeah.
there was nothing in place at that point.
And we
Yeah.
also could have, we could, if we wanted to, put in place a policy. It's called a repair policy, so that if you actually have a busted water line and you're out of town for a week, instead of paying that exorbitant water rate for that time, you can come back in there and say, hey, I had a leak, and the city can say, well, okay, fine, prove us you fixed that leak, and we will give you a break. We still have to charge you for the water, but we're not going to charge you at the higher rate. We may charge you at a lower rate in an effort to motivate people to do the right thing.
Yeah.
And it's a leak relief payment or something like that. We could,
I think if there's a legitimate leak, my understanding is the city kind of forgives that.
that's exactly the thing. We should make it an official policy, to be quite honest, so that if somebody,
Too late.
Except for you.
yeah, that's my point. So if somebody gets the unofficial leak relief and the other guy doesn't, then we have another $500,000 worth of attorney fees. So I think we ought to make that an official policy. That's just my personal.
So let me clarify that, Paul. I think I misunderstood you. When the bills come in, because we only read the meters every month. So Lori only pushes the button, drives around the city and gathers all that information, dumps it in. Then she gets her stack of bills. She sorts it digitally, sorts it by usage,
Oh,
and then sees and compares, oh,
Okay.
there's something going on here. And then she'll call.
so it may be too late in a situation like that.
Yeah, there's just,
Probably
we
will.
would need somebody to drive the city daily and pull and aggregate that
And
data.
actually, there is a system. And
Yes.
Corbett's, I'm sure, been to some seminars on it. There are systems. Not every meter system has a program that can actually do it in real time and say, hey,
That's what I
we've
remember.
noticed for 2 or 3 days or 2 or 3 hours.
That was one of the, when we had the
Yeah.
topic of fiber, that was one of the issues as a public utility issue, is we can now get enough data running through that we can get real-time information on the water usage
But
and catch some, because really, I mean, I had to pay a high bill, but that didn't hurt us, that didn't kill us. The biggest issue for me was we wasted a lot of water that the city needed in that week that we were gone. And if we can catch it so it doesn't leak out, then we keep it in the system.
the software is there to do that. Again, it's money. How much are we willing to spend on that? What is the return on that investment?
Corbett, do you know?
Part of our $1 million
About $100,000.
reserve fund that buys
Well,
some.
3 years ago, it was about $100,000. The meters that we have in place right now will do that. We're partway there. And in fact, we've tried reading the meters at the city office and we can pick up about 100, or we can pick up about 380 of the meters. If you look at the city office, right in the middle of the building, there's a piece of 1-inch pipe sticking up through the roof. I tried to get it to put an antenna on the roof, and we didn't want to spend the money to do it, to see if we couldn't pick up. I mean, I held up an antenna on the outside with a bunch of cement pole handles and I got it up about 20 feet above the roof, and I could pick up 384 meters from the office at any given time.
Could we attach it to the siren?
We need to be taller than that. I was as tall as the siren by myself, just holding it up.
Corbett, you and I talked, and I think we talked about it at city council at least a while back, about testing it out. You were gonna maybe climb the pole up at the water tank and do the same thing and see how much you could read in to see if maybe we could set up a permanent system at the top of the water tank, because that gives us a little more elevation. I know we talked about doing that, whether or not it got done, and Corbett, I'd be more than happy to climb that pole for you if you need to.
Right now?
If you need me to. Pardon?
Right now, or do you want to wait till the snow melts? That was the
Let's
hang
wait.
before.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't have to climb as far now.
Hey, if you fall,
And if I fall.
there's a nice, just don't fall into the razor wire.
So anyway, so that's something we could do, and that'll help. But again, it won't do the real time
Yeah.
calculating, but it sounds like our system will do it. We just have to upgrade the software or the programming to do so.
Well, technically, it's not real time. It's as often as you want to initiate the read cycle. And so if you want, I mean, Spanish Fork has 3 towers that they read all of the meters in town. And they can read them as often as they start the cycle, but it's not a minute by minute. It's not a every 10-minute polling cycle. It's as often as you want to initiate the cycle. Keep in mind that the batteries on the radios at the meter have a life. And the more you initiate that meter read, the shorter that life is. And
And
so
I imagine Spanish Fork has probably got some real-time power there, so they've got grid power that they can use for that, so they're not killing their batteries constantly too.
not on the meters.
True, on the meters. You're exactly right on the meters. Okay,
Yeah.
yes, you're right. Meters have like 20-year lifespan under once a month where, yeah, you're exactly right, Corbett, yeah. That's a good point.
They also have a Costco
So,
and a Walmart.
but anyway.
Woodland
one of
Hills
the-
has Ben Hilliard.
We're screwed.
So one of the things we talked about is I looked it up on, I don't know if it's USA Blue Book or Garter or something like that. There's an electronic sounding device. You just set it over the well and it's over the well casing, and it's a sonar. It'll actually measure the depth of the water and it'll record it for you. If nothing else, for the time being, we can just go out once a week, or we could do it before we start a well and then do it after we start the well and see how it draws down. Then we can come back and see how it recovers. We can play with it however we want. And this is just a mechanical device that we can put in place. And so it'd just be something that I could do, staff member could do, somebody can do, and we can just make the recordings and we can compare notes with how the well is running, or is the well running? What's the trending on it?
Could we use that at the inlets at the salt shed?
Well, we could do it. That's one spot we could look at. You got the 2 casings down to Salt Shed, or down by you got 2 casings down to the south end, and you got 1 empty casing up at the Broad Hollow as well. Unfortunately, it's a little bit closer to the well than I'd like to see, but nonetheless, it's there. And we could just, it's basically just a rope that you stick in there and see how wet it gets, like you take a stick in your fuel tank.
But
this
sound.
is an electronic device that's a lot more accurate. And it'll have a data logger on it, I think. And then you can just record all that. And then you can take that data and you can compare it to the data of our city wells. And we can kind of come up with some sort of a plan.
This is a $10 item?
No, it's not much more. I mean, respectively, it's only about 1,500. It's about 1,500. So it's
really?
not that expensive.
I've seen them, and they don't look like they'd be a $1,500 item, to be truthful with you. I work with a guy who does well monitoring on some property that we have, and it's a device that it's an electronic device. They drop down the well, as soon as it hits water, the sound goes off.
No, do they reel it out?
Real.
Okay, that's just a regular sounder. Those are probably $800, $900. This one's an electronic, so you don't have to keep wheeling the water, putting it down. What you're saying is you drop it down, it looks like a fishing
Like a fishing
reel,
reel.
and you drop it down, and it's got a little light and a beeper on it. As soon as it hits water, it gives you the connection. It sends a beep, and the light goes off, and then it's got a little tape measure on the line. You can tell, okay, it beeped at this. And then you have to reel it back up. This one is an electronic version of that.
It's
So-
a sonar pulse.
So it's a solar pulse and it does exactly the same thing, but it's a whole lot less work.
Well, if you're talking about a 400-foot well or something like that, then something is beneficial. We're measuring 20 feet. well,
Yeah,
20
and
feet
we
well,
got,
so
you know,
It's not a big deal.
we're a lot deeper than that. And again, with the data logger, you know, you've got that data that you can download and you can compare and you can, you know, because I'm sure we've got a well monitor at the Maple Canyon well, as well as the one we got up here that Corbett has showed me, so I know we got a good one up there. And then you could just, like I said, you can massage the data, not massage it, but you can grab the data however you want. And you can compare and you can kind of say, okay, well, in the summertime, when the well's running, this is what we get. When the well's not running, it recovers that way. In October, the groundwater levels are here. Come spring, they're up to here. We got good data. You know, we had good snow this year, so it's up a little higher than it was when it's dry, or it didn't change or anything like that. And you can kind of get that, and it can help you with some long-term planning. I mean, this is a simple, low-end, bottom line, cheap way of doing it, but it's probably going to get us a pretty good return on our investment for as far as data goes. Also, along those lines, I've been talking with he's not only a friend, but he was, I've worked with him on some water projects, some water, groundwater projects, mostly up north in North Utah County, Cedar Valley. His name is Hugh Harlow. He is the groundwater manager for Utah Geological Survey. He does all of these projects. He would be willing to either him or one of his staff members come and give an educational presentation to the council. I think that would be free of charge. It'd take, you know, and he can explain it a lot better than I can. Let's just say that. And he said that he'd be willing to do that. But you know, I'm not going to invite him. You guys are going to have to invite him. I'll reach, if you want me to reach out to him, but when I say you as a council. And he can talk about a lot of different options. I mean, we can spend, you know, $1,500 for the sounder tube or the sounder radar on this, or we can spend, you know, $15 million to do a comprehensive system of the whole Southern Valley, which will include all the cities because they all affect. Biggest things we talked about is the different aquifers. Are we, you know, we've heard that this well's in a different aquifer than this well. He's not so sure. He says they may be the same. Like he said, some, you know, take a little bit of studying to do that. You just take groundwater samples and you do a constituent report on them, say, well, you got so much of this type of mineral in this one and that much. And it can say, well, the water looks the same. It could be, or it looks different. So it probably is different. Looking at the water quality report that Corbett just presented the other day, I looked at the constituents that we're measuring and they're so close you can't tell. You really, there's nothing that jumps out and says, oh, that's different water than this water. TDS is really close, and all the constituents were close enough that you just really couldn't tell. Corbett and I spent a little bit of time talking about that the other day. But anyway, that's
Do we
something.
have a state database on
Nothing,
water
there's no,
types and,
when you say database,
But like, you know, does the county office have, because, you know, Corbett's doing water testing 3 times a week, right? And he
Right.
goes in, he takes it, they test it, they look at it, and it goes to Payson, he turns it in and all that,
Yeah.
right? Is that being collected? I'm assuming we're not the only
yeah,
city that has to
every
do
approved
that.
city in the state does that, probably every approved city.
So
in the
is there a
county does.
database of that
Yeah,
information?
Well, what that is that's based on a division of drinking water
Mm-hmm.
limits. You know, what is the normal limit? What is the maximum safe?
So they're
limit?
not going down to a
So
molecular structure. or
they're
anything.
not drilling down quite as deep as what I'm talking about. These guys would take like tritium levels, which is a byproduct of nuclear testing, and they can you know, half-life that level and say, well, there is no tritium in this water. It means that water's been in the mountain at least, you know, 75 years. There's this,
Gotcha.
you know, that's just one example. And so they can kind of calculate the age of the waters, you know, when the water reached the top of the mountain to work up, how long did it take to get there to the wellhead type of stuff. You know, that's just one component of it. There's a lot of components to that. And that's what these guys do
Gotcha.
very good. And he could educate, and, you know, and to do a full-fledged study is going to require cooperation from all the communities, the county, you know, the probably some federal money, and, you know, it would spend a lot of money. The one we did in Southeast Utah was, yeah, I want to say 7.5 million. Yeah, and all the shareholders, you know,
Contributed, but
and the, you know, USGS did that one, and they put the most money into the pocket, but then the county did, each of the individual water systems did, and some of the environmental groups, you know, all contributed to get that done. And it was like a 3-year study to come up with. They were actually trying to figure out how much water is actually available. So that's something I think we're way over the top trying to do that here. There's just no funds for it right now.
well, it sounds like the state should have that done.
Well, but anyway, like I said,
Why are we talking about that?
we're talking about, it's on the priority list. But just,
That kind of study is. on
no, number three on the list, on your list there. I'm sorry, I get you.
It's just well monitoring. He's talking about the scope potential.
I'm just saying this guy, this is the type of stuff that this guy does I was talking about. I mean, he could come up, I don't think he's going to propose a project, but he would certainly come in and say, this is, you know, if you guys are interested.
Well, and then maybe it does. It starts with a sonar.
Again,
$1,500 tool
I'm
that we
looking-
can use to start pulling our own data, but potentially it could look into something huge.
I'm looking 20 years out. Like I said, it'd be, if nothing else, it'd be, instead of everybody not quite understanding everything about it, this would help them.
Yeah.
Just,
I think it'd be very interesting.
if they want, great. If not, him and I'll just talk. 'Cause I have fun talking with him all the time.
I apologize for being late. This didn't show up on my calendar anywhere, so.
We're glad to have you. then.
Getting home from work. so.
Oh,
Turn on your microphone.
Yeah, when you walked, I was gonna call for an adjournment, but.
Oh, that would have been nice. But here's the thing about a lot of our public works. And there's like this huge gap between what we could do, you know, the possible versus what we can do. We're a small city. We got Corbett and a gaggle of volunteers. We can't even think about anything that you're talking about.
of course not.
So I'm just like,
But that's
okay,
why
if the state ever came up with that would be great. We'd be happy to participate. But for us to drive that kind of a thing,
And again, on item number 3, all we're asking for is $1,500 to buy that sounder so we can kind of track our own stuff in-house and to kind of give us an idea so that, you know, 15, 20 years from now, when we've got twice as many homes, are we going to find ourselves in trouble?
And so I think there were two things you were talking about in number 3, right? One was this $1,500 to be able to get data fairly cheaply and easily. And the other was, do we invite this guy to
Yeah,
come
that was
educate
just-
on
that was more of
water
a side note.
issues that help
Yeah,
to
and
interpret?
And I think David walked in the middle of that, and so
Yeah.
they missed the first part of the conversation.
Yeah, so those are, I think, the 2 points.
Yeah, and then, like I said, if you guys were interested, he'd be more willing to come and you know, just for, you know, entertainment value, if nothing
Yeah.
else. You know, an educational thing.
yeah, I mean,
Well, sewer.
$1,500, again, could we get that?
Sure.
Yeah, that comes out of the water fund, not
Be
that
a
big of a
maintenance,
deal.
maintenance cost.
15
million, not so much, I get it.
15 million, not
Do you even drop a
in
zero?
my
or two?
lifetime.
You're still.
I get it, okay.
15,000 is a no.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess, I don't know. Again, I came late and I understand that. But I think as a public works committee, we would be better if we stayed within the realm of what's really possible rather than pipe dreams or things that,
Well, I don't know
And
if
again-
anything here is on a pipe dream level. It's-
And again,
Do we
I'm,
want to do a 1,500 to start pulling data? I think that's worth considering. And then do we want to bring this guy in to educate us on a more holistic view of what that data could potentially be? And then Mark just said, there's also, this is what he also can do to give more credential information than we could do. So, yeah, 15 million is not even.
and, you know, that's probably a stretch on the number anyway, but nonetheless, if, you know,
I don't even know that the state of Utah would do that
I
kind
know.
of stuff.
well, that's what I'm saying, the project we did involved several stakeholders. But again, it was part of the adjudication that we were talking about. That was all part of
Which is
that
a-
program. So,
A lot of money on the line there.
so anyway, that was just kind of a side note. If, you know, if you
Yeah.
guys want, I'll talk to them. If not, so be it. I mean, like I said, I have fun talking to him all the time. Because, you know, he
You're
loves,
one of them.
he loves to talk about it. I like to learn. So,
I would think that if the city council wants some explanation of things that Corbett, as much as they would want, Corbett could satisfy that information for the city council and talking to them. I don't know that they would need to go on to be, you know, have more of a knowledge of the things that he could provide than what they'd be satisfied with having Corbett talk to them.
I mean,
it's up to you guys.
just as an example, to me, the bigger issue than doing groundwater studies is getting another tank. To me, a tank is a practical thing. We need that. A groundwater study, okay, if we had money to burn, we could do a groundwater study. Or even the $1,500, I'm kind of sitting there going, do we really need this? Would it be nice to have information and to have that fluctuation and all that?
And I'll
Sure.
let me be as candid as I can on that. We've put this up 3 years in a row and nothing's been done with it. So it's my position that the council really isn't interested. But the mayor asked me to bring it forth with some numbers. That's why we're here. I
Yeah.
agree. It's
I
been
think-
presented, it's been rinsed and recycled and everything for the last 3 or 4 years, and nothing's been done. So quite honestly, I expect nothing to be done personally, but I'm going to bring it up because I was asked to by the mayor.
Let me throw something else in there.
That's my candid position.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. And
Well,
that's what this study would do. That's what a study would do. That's what the data would do. If you gathered the data, that's what that data would tell you is what you don't know. And so I think it's a good idea because you don't know that you're in trouble. You don't know that you're going down the wrong path. You don't know that you need to implement conservation measures, incentivize gray water recycling, incentivize xeriscaping. You don't know that you need to do that. And until you know, you're heading down a tunnel that you might not be able to get out of when that time comes.
we don't know what the size of the aquifer is.
Yeah, and we
We
also
don't
don't know
know.
who's influencing this aquifer. Those are the things, I think that's something we do know. And again.
Yeah, but that's a multi-$1,000
I
study.
agree. It's not gonna happen. I agree. But what I, you know, again, I'm not talking about trying to find stuff out for next week. I'm 10, 12 years here and I'm gone. You know, there's plenty of water for me. I just don't want the people sitting here 20 years from now going, why didn't these people think of this 20 years ago?
We did. We didn't need it.
That's all I'm saying.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
No,
I mean, there's a lot of things I don't know. So I don't know that that's the best argument. But I do know that we're going to need a new water tank here shortly. I know that. So for me, that seems like a more practical thing that we should be planning for and looking at the various studies that are required in order to get a new water tank, you know, the impact fee studies, all that other stuff. To me, that's something that we can actually do. $1,500, again, to me, that's a maintenance issue. If we don't have that, that's not even a council issue. That's a Corbett issue. He
No,
does that, we're done.
I can only spend $500.
That's fine. Then talk to the mayor and get him to approve it. It's done. It's that we don't
The
have
mayor
to
can
bring
approve it.
$1,500 things to the council.
So can I ask a question then? This, again, and this is a function of, I never could understand this when I was on the council either. The function of the committees, I always appreciated having a committee that had people whose professions were in this area that knew way more than I could ever guess at. Take a look at things and tell us when it's something we don't know that matters and when it's something we don't know that doesn't matter. Because I'm never going to know, even if it matters and I'm looking at the data, I'm going to be like, okay, I don't know what that means. So is that part of the function of a committee, or is it the committee really directed by the city council, meaning the city council says, we have a resource there. We're gonna get 6 questions. We're gonna take and shoot those over to the committee, say, you guys answer those 6 questions and give us the information. And that's your job. So if you see something in the process, I mean, logically, you'd think if it's a major issue, the committee says, guys, you're not aware of this, but we're seeing this and you need to be aware of it. So I can see that there'd be some of that. But kind of fundamentally, the purpose of a committee, is it to be more proactive as professionals who understand this and tell the council, hey, these are the things that we see as professionals that you ought to consider? Or is it really to say, let's let the council educate or tell us what they want to know, we then get answers and get back? I never could quite figure that out. Do you guys have a sense of the two that are on the council? Do you have a sense of that?
I think it's both, actually. And it depends on the committee too. Because like the finance, well, okay, planning commission's a perfect example, right? We throw stuff over to their wall all the time. Some of it's stuff that we know, and we just need them to do a deep dive that we don't have the time to really go into that deep dive. Other times it's things that the planning commission brings up and says, hey, you know, this is an issue, and then they push this way. So really, you're talking push versus pull. I think it's both, with especially the planning commission. Finance committee, it's a little bit more like we ask them questions and ask them to do a deep dive, and then they bring us back information. I think the public works committee could be kind of a little bit of both. I think there are certain, like, you know, I was actually, and we didn't have this conversation, so I apologize to do it in this meeting, but I think it's useful. I asked myself, why haven't we met the last 2 years? Well, in my mind, the reason was because it sounds a little trite, but we spent all the money. So we put together the initial 5-year plan for the roads, and we bonded for that money, and we spent it. It was gone. So there was really no decisions to be made because it was done. Same thing with water, right? We kind of got to a point with the water project where we had gotten the major loan, the $3 million. We'd put in a lot of pipe, and we took care of that need, and in some ways we were kind of done. We had no more money to spend. So meeting as a committee to decide on more priorities wasn't really going to be helpful
There's nothing to pay for it.
because there was nothing to pay
Which
for.
is exactly why we've gone from once a month to once a quarter to once when we're needed. You know, that's
Yeah.
kind of what we boiled down to.
So that's why I'm kind of the opinion when it comes to the Public Works Committee, that to me, what would be useful now is because we still don't have any money, right? But it would be useful to me to put together some priorities and say,
When we have money, this is what we need to spend it on first.
exactly.
And that's trying what we're doing, trying to keep you out of the ball. I mean, at the same time, I know you're not saying this, but it sounds like, you know, just because we don't have any money, doesn't mean we can just stick our heads in the sand and wait for something, you know, and hope nothing happens.
No,
You
no,
know,
no.
you know, so we've got to
There's the
find,
proactive part, right?
and
Right.
Say, hey,
that's the
guys.
balance. We're, you know, again, we understand, you know, an attorney, for example, he's an attorney. That's what he does. He understands law. He's going to say, my recommendation as attorney is you do this or you do that, you don't do this. Okay. Now, this is going to cost you, you know, if you choose not to do it, that's your decision, not mine. But at least I provided you with the information you needed to help you with your decision-making process. And I think that's all we're trying to do, saying these are things we need. We understand you can't do everything. That's why we give you the information we feel you need, and you say, well, you know, prioritize it. Well, yeah, I can't do that because I got to buy a fire truck, or no, I can't do that because, you know, we've got lawsuits, or I can't do that, you know, but we can do this. And we think that the benefit of doing this compared to the cost, maybe that's something we can talk about. You know, again, you know, as I said earlier, we're basically on, you know, rinse and repeat here. But at the same time, we just can't take our eye off the ball and forget about it until it's running out of the ground at, you know, 5,000 gallons a minute. You know, type of thing.
Well, I
So
think
maybe our
there's-
job partly is to say, here's what we're seeing, and
Yeah.
here's why we think it's relevant to take to the council.
Right, and then the council has to make the decision on if it's relevant to them or not.
Yeah.
And and the thing about it is, it's like the Christmas wish list. Every kid's got their favorite gift, and the parents have to decide, what can I do with all this information?
So getting back to this $1,500 issue, again, I don't think that's something that we or anyone needs to take to the council.
If
Like,
it were, and I stated
That to me is, right, and I understand that.
It can be taken right out of our budget.
To me, that's a maintenance issue.
But it's okay to talk about here because
Sure.
we gotta get this group to say, yeah, we think this is important enough.
Or
to
maybe,
address. But
the
not
other
take it
thing,
to the council.
Right.
the other part is, yeah, that is an important thing. Nobody's thought about this. Yeah, maybe we ought to look into it. Yeah, and direct Corbett, yeah, let's get one of those. Let's see if we can do this.
Yeah.
Because Corbett's not got enough things to do without thinking about something else, right?
Love you too,
and the
Mark.
fact that, and the fact that maybe they need to know that, hey, we've got some guys that have done this before living in the city. They got really nothing else to do except watch, Star Trek reruns. That might be willing to help out.
I'm coming to your
And-
house.
And if the council's aware of that, and they can say, yeah, look, we can do this, or, well, we don't care, just, let's just press on. It's not important to us. It's not that it's not important, but there's just so many other things more important that this is on the bottom of the list. I get it.
So
But
there's a
Our
third
job as
element.
the committee is to bring what's important to us in the budget, to bring what's important to Parks and Trails, to bring what's important to them, to you guys, and then you can digest all that as a council. At least that's the way I've ever seen committees working. In almost 40 years I've been doing this.
But I think to comment again on this 1,500, I think it's right, Corbett, he's maybe using a sounding board as Mark. Mark's had the experience out there with a lot of this stuff. Corbett says, I could use one of these devices to help better monitor the wells and kind of help us make some determinations and so forth. And as far as this committee goes, I don't see an issue with the committee saying, yeah, we don't object to that. Tell Corbett, go ahead and talk to the mayor, make arrangements to get it.
And
End of story. So, but it's something where maybe Corbett's using us a little bit as a sounding board of things. And so I think that's not a bad thing.
So is that our conclusion then on this issue is we can go back to Corbett and say, thumbs up, we think that this could be a good thing for the price. Go talk to the mayor about it.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
And the other thing is,
I vote A.
Yeah, and the other thing is,
I'm pretty thick-skinned. If I bring something up and you guys don't like it, hey.
So
I'll
getting-
get over it.
again, going back to another issue that I read, and I know you,
You have to
You've
go
already
down.
talked
You can't-
about it.
You can't go back up, Dave. It's only going to 4 or 5.
but the $100,000 for phase 3, okay? Now that's something that, okay, yeah, mayor can't approve that, Corbett can't approve that. That does require the council, and now the council is gonna have to do some kind of planning so that we get the financing in place so that we can actually do that. So that's a different kind of a matter because the amount is so much bigger. And so that's where I think we as a committee can say, okay,
That goes
new
back to
tank
council.
or phase 3, which is 1, which is 2.
Agreed. And
Yeah.
at the same time, I also like to think, okay, this is important, and this is important, but this is this much money, and this is maybe this much money. So, yeah, maybe we can get the benefit out of this versus out of that. And so maybe this was on like 4 or 5 on the priority list, but because it was such a small amount, yeah, we can move it up the list a little bit, and we can actually get it done. Whereas this can't get done because there's no money to do it.
And let's keep this in mind up here.
But let's
That
not-
being the case,
Yeah.
we need to look for $100,000 within a certain period of time to move forward with this and not lose track of it, but put it there as,
And that's the biggest challenge that councils have, especially councils in bigger communities where there's a lot of turnover in the government. These items are on this council's mind, but next councils, they're not there and they don't know about it. And the staff has to keep reminding them about that so that it doesn't, fall off the back
And
burner.
that's right. Your third value add to the council is big cities, council members have staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't.
Right.
So you guys fill that role as well,
Good point.
right? And so you have a little bit more longevity in some capacities, right? You transcend certain council members, whatever, and so we can keep that consistency, right? I would say though, with David's point,
I do think we need to get storage tank on this list.
Yeah.
And I would say it is probably more important than three-phase at the well.
Right, but now that being said, we discussed that earlier, and it was on the other list, pulled off. I didn't put it on there, but it's something we can certainly put on this list, because that's why,
Yeah.
this was just
Yeah.
my points, not everybody's points. But the one thing that we are looking at, I believe, is an impact fee study for water, which is probably gonna talk a little bit about the need for a storage tank and how we can pay for new, out of an impact fee study. So that may be a component of this that would be paid for out of impact fees. So
And
that.
and you guys, as the council reps on the committee here, you guys come to us and say, put water tanks on this list. Right?
It's important.
And that makes sense
I
because,
think we need to, just because, well, not just because, but if it's not on the list, it won't be, it has the potential to be left out of the impact fee study.
Well,
Impact
if it's
study
left out of
was
the
already-
impact fee study, we wasted our money on the impact fee study, is all I'm gonna say. Yeah,
Well,
but-
we're out of,
I don't disagree.
we're
but
in
I'm just
trouble
saying-
right now with tank storage.
Yeah.
Right, Corbett?
excuse me.
Yes, the impact fee study was done. A water tank is in the impact fee study, so we're already starting to collect money for the water tank. We have to have a plan to spend that money within 6 years, overextend ourselves and bond for it, or spend what you collect or give it back. So the impact fee study has already been done, and a water tank is part of that impact fee study that sets the rate for that impact fee.
Was that part of our vote last council meeting?
Corbett, question for you. Do we have land for that?
Well, that decision still needs to be made. Yes, you have land, but do you put it up at the upper tanks where the Broad Hollow well is now? Or do you put it someplace else?
Okay. What are our options land-wise? Because the reason I bring this up is when we were doing the development agreement, that was one of the sticking points, was Summit Creek had donated a lot or two.
Don Meekum donated.
Don
oh,
Meekum,
really?
thank
Or
you,
water tank?
for a water tank. But then somehow in a lot of churn, that got taken away. And I don't think in the development agreement, we got it back.
We didn't.
So anyway,
Shoot.
that sucks, but that was one of the sticking points that Wayne was doing a really good job trying to get in, and Summit Creek would not budge.
But it may not have been the ideal place. It was a lot down, halfway down the city. So depending upon city requirements, that may not have been an ideal place to locate it.
Okay.
Because then you may need to put a pump there, depending on what it's servicing, and that sort of thing. So all that needs to be taken into consideration when talk about location.
You know, kind of getting back to Will, sorry, I couldn't hold it any longer. Talking too much water. The water tank issue, if I remember right, didn't really become much of an issue or a challenge until we upgraded our fire flow requirements. Is that
Correct.
correct? So that's really a new development, the need for the storage tanks because of the new,
Well,
I mean, it kind of brought it to the
technically,
forefront.
yes. Our problem is we currently have, Corbett, how many tanks do we have currently? 4?
5 and a half, 5 and
3? We have 3 up
40%.
at the Broad Hollow well, correct?
3 at the Broad Hollow well, 1 at the booster station on Maple Court, and then 40% of the Maple Canyon.
We have one beautiful water tank up at the Broad Hollow well. That's the one the avalanche landed on top of, right?
Correct.
Tell us about the other 2.
There's steel tanks. The little one was a 40,000 gallon tank. It was erected in 1965, so it's currently, 58 years old?
Okay?
The
and
other one is a
structural
two-
integrity.
Questionable. It leans. It leans. It's got a guy wire tied to a tree. I'm just kidding about the guy wire tied to the tree. It does have a guy. It does have a guy on it to
Oh,
keep it from tipping over, but it's not tied to a tree.
life expectancy of a still storage tank is 50 years.
Okay, and we're really hanging on to that 50, right? So
58.
Just a minute before you go on, do we actually put water in that tank?
Yes. I mean, they're dry right now because I haven't filled them back up after installing the meter vault. But yes, they're serviceable. I just got to fill them back up, and I don't want to do that until I can flush the line coming up from the booster station.
and per our requirements to be able to show the bureaucrats that are wanting, we use those tanks to hit our numbers, correct?
Yeah, no,
No?
we're
So
we're currently deficient in our storage capacity because we're not counting those tanks at all. The steel tanks anyways. The only tanks that we're counting in our storage capacity right now is the Broad Hollow tank and the Maple Canyon tank. We're not counting the concrete tank on Maple Court or the 2 steel tanks up at the top.
Do we get dinged for that, Corbett, or is there a little bit of allowance there that we can?
Depends on who you talk to.
How much you tell them.
We want to talk to the people that don't want to ding us.
Yeah.
Division of Drinking Water counts those tanks because they are usable tanks. So according to the Division of Drinking Water, we're okay, according to our own study, because we have to consider the fact that they're beyond their life expectancy. We have to consider the fact for replacement. Division of Drinking Water doesn't care about life expectancy so much. They do, but they're looking at today, real time. Do you have enough storage capacity for the connections that you currently have?
So again, back to the question of the function of this committee, what would be most helpful, Corbett, for you and for the city council members, as far as this committee and getting data to help on the storage tank issue? Like, do we know what's going to be required to get approved? Do we know cost? I mean, where can the committee step in and provide information to you guys that would be helpful in this decision? Sounds like the decision has to be made to do it. We need it. So,
Yeah, I think, oh, go ahead, Corbett.
I was going to say, I think a lot of that data has already been accomplished through the impact fee study that was done. There just needs to be a plan put in place to utilize that impact fee money before we have to replace it, and the timing for the use of that money. I mean, obviously you don't want, when you collect impact fees, most of us understand that you have to use that impact fee that's been collected within 6 years. Or you can borrow the money and use the impact fees collected to make the bond payment. If you do that, then you basically overextend yourself and you spend those impact fee monies as they come in.
You have to, the term is called encumber the funds. You have to encumber the impact fee funds within the 6 years. So like you said, so if you're bonded, then you use impact fee money to pay the bond, so that the money has been encumbered.
so it sounds like maybe our function can be just to keep this on everyone's radar regularly.
Actually, I'd like to go a step further. Again, I think the function of the committee is about informing the council and letting us know. So I think the committee could put together the plan that Corbett's talking about. And of course, with Corbett's assistance, and then give a presentation to the council and say, hey, this is a priority. This is the plan. Here's how we're going to do it. And this is how you need to then, as a council, not spend money in other areas because this is the plan.
And that's a great idea. This is what we presented to you guys. As a council, I say you guys, as to the council says, okay, well, we sat in budget committees, we've talked to all the other stakeholders in this whole process, and we think that this is probably our best choice. And then you can say, great, let's direct you, just like the attorney thing analogy I was using earlier. We understand what you told us, but this is what we want you to do. I'll defend anything you want to defend, is what my attorney would always say, but I'm recommending you do this. Okay, so I can't guarantee the outcome if we do something different. So, and we can do just that, say, well, this is what we feel is important. Take what we feel is important, mix it in with everything else, and give us feedback what you feel is important, and we'll roll with it. But we just want to try and make sure that you know everything that's important. We don't leave anything off. And that being said, let me get back to the well. You know, we're talking about the importance of a tank versus the importance of the well upgrades. Remember, we were just talking a few minutes ago, and this is before you came in, David. We are overloaded on that well now. Okay,
Correct.
so that is not something that's secondary by any means. That's why I, for my personal, you know, thoughts needed to be on there, because again, as I said earlier, we're running 20 amp load on a 15 amp fuse, okay, or circuit. Okay,
Yeah.
so what good's a tank gonna be if you can't pump water to it?
Yeah, and for me, it's almost a chicken and the egg type thing. Like, if I would say put the tank as number one, that would mean put this as number two, really, really close.
Yeah.
Right? If it's one or the other, that's another reason we'd love this committee's assistance, is doing that analyzation and figuring out what you guys feel is one or two, and putting on your salesman hat to come to us and say, hey, this is it. Because one, I can say, okay, Wayne, here's my priorities. Or, right, I can come and say, okay, Wayne, I need to talk to you about these priorities. I'm going to go through each one with you and persuade him. Then he's now got the same buy-in, right? We're only two on the
Agreed.
council,
Agreed.
right? And so the whole council has a laundry list from every committee.
Agreed, yeah.
And in my opinion, this council holds a unique situation because you are water and roads, right? And I think, isn't David Stones as part of this committee? as
Yeah,
well?
he is. He's, yeah,
Right.
other meetings.
So now we've got snow removal as well.
Which could be
Those
rolled
are-
into roads, actually, yeah.
Right. Yeah, those are three of some of the biggest services that we have. So the persuasion, the prioritization really should be from the city councils, in my opinion. Emphasis should be right here, with a few other things inputted,
But at the same time, Doral's gonna think it should be in fire.
and that's what makes
Well,
the
but-
beauty
but-
of the
but
city
wait,
council,
yeah,
right?
but
Is
let's
we
not mix
all
those.
come together and are
Water's-
working together.
Water's a water fund, fire is a different fund.
Yeah.
Those aren't the same.
That is
pots
one
of
nice
money.
thing is we've got the water.
So
Excellent.
please don't confuse those.
But I'm just saying.
But roads are competing with fire.
Yeah,
Right? And that's what I'm saying is that is one of the benefits to this council, is you guys have the ability to come to us, and and I hate to say it this way, but the more work you guys can put in on the sales pitch, the more likely we're going to be able to feel that importance.
It's not
And-
like I'm trying to sell it to you.
Well,
Yeah.
but sometimes what it is if you guys can collect the data, right? Or even if we come back to number 3, right? Why is the data collection so important, right? Do we have a threat of the aquifer? We think it's, let's say, 1 million gallons. I have no idea, but it's only 10,000, right? And if this helps us get to that information before that 10,000 turns into 0, now we can prioritize a lot sooner than when that sucker dries up and we're like,
Like I said at the meeting last week, we know how much gas we're using, we just don't know how much is in the tank.
correct. And that's why I think number 3, super valuable. Love the price tag. That data is what will help us really pass on the best legacy for the future councils, like you're saying, right? Because we're going to be able to say, hey, this is what our utilization, this is the impact, it gives us information where we're currently running blind, right? Our pants are down and we have no
I think we're
idea,
safe, but we don't know it, yeah.
right? And that's the thing. We really don't know. And that will help us know, because if that's $15,000 for us to know, sweet. If that's 1,500, if that's 1,500 for us to find out that we have a problem, that's a beautiful 1,500 spent,
Money worth.
right? And that's just cheap. So what I would love to know is, back to David's point, is I think the 3-phase is extremely important. I think the well storage is extremely important.
Why is one more than the other?
Correct. How do we prioritize them, right?
Yeah, what's the data? Yeah.
And back before David said, I said, we're really looking for 2 lists, right? If we say all of these cost $100,000 each, rank them, now it's about
just what's important, right?
Yeah.
And then what is the actual numbers and rank those.
And
Those two lists will help us. make
overall,
decisions.
on that, we know these are equally important. It's just for, we also know that we don't have funds for either one right now, but it's
We
something,
don't know that.
well, yeah.
We just learned here tonight, but we have no idea how much money is in
The fund, in there, yeah.
in the
In
water
the
fund.
actual,
The depreciation fund, what's there? Can we afford to do both these at the same time?
Or can we not afford to do either?
Find
Yeah,
that
we
Or,
don't.
or neither one right now?
Well, and again, this goes back to a conversation a couple years ago. My preference would be that we not think about the money. Instead, just a minute. Instead, what we should do is we should find out how much is a tank going to cost, ballpark. How much is the phase 3 going to cost, ballpark. Then we say, okay, these are the expenses. Now we take that to the finance committee and say, this is what we need. Finance committee, tell us what we can have.
And isn't that exactly what we're doing?
Right. Well,
We can't
Yes.
make a priority though, without information from the finance committee.
I agree. But the reason I say it that way is, so there's a number of ways to be very creative with money. So one, Wayne already mentioned, right? We do have a depreciation fund. We were required to by the loan that we got. So we do have that money. The other thing that Corbett mentioned is very true. If we are now collecting impact fees, we can use that as a bond assurance so that we could get a bond for that. Well, investigating that kind of stuff is what the finance committee is all about. So let them do the investigating. Let's not worry about the investigation and trying to find out exactly which fund the money is going to come from. Let the finance committee do that. But we should be about saying, here's how much this is going to, how much it's going to cost. Here's how much we need. Finance committee, go figure out, can we do it or can we have those funds?
Okay. And
Does that make sense?
exactly.
Yeah. There's some caveats though. I think we need to have better than a ballpark idea. We need to fine tune it as best we can
Agreed.
to
Yeah.
get those dollar amounts. And understand them, be specific, what wire's gonna cost, what this is gonna cost, have those outlined. They're gonna change.
Yeah, it
Give them
needs
some-
to be a
you know.
bid level
But a really best
kind of,
estimate
Yeah.
that we can.
We just can't go to the finance committee and say, hey, we need a new water tank and a new upgrade to the well.
no, because then they're going to get blocked
yeah.
going,
Well, how much is this gonna cost?
how much is this going to cost?
That's
I
why-
don't know.
that's why-
How much do I ask for?
So my question too with that, do we go to the finance committee or do we go through council, the finance committee? What's the interaction between
Okay,
two
maybe.
committees? How does that get facilitated?
Unfortunately, I don't have the ordinance with me, but in the ordinance that you guys was in your packet last week,
Yeah.
it states working with the finance committee to solve this, to work through this. It's in the ordinance, so we are,
This committee can work directly
yes,
with.
it is in the ordinance. You guys read it, if you,
Okay,
I don't feel strongly about being the middleman.
So I think it just slows it down.
Anytime I can avoid that, I like to avoid it.
So if I could summarize what I'm playing the village idiot role because I do that really well. So when I'm
How
sitting
you're
hearing.
dressed kind of fits.
I thought you were
I
the
don't
coach
like it.
yesterday.
I need the hat with the four.
I thought you were the coach yesterday.
your wife has confirmed that by the way.
He does on a daily basis. So what I'm hearing is what we need to do on this specific, let's just take this specific issue of the water tank. We research it, we figure it out. We look at, number one, what things does the city council not know that they don't know that is relevant to this question? And then what's the cost and the process gonna look like? And we gather that information. We then take it to the finance committee and say, okay, we have pretty close to accurate costs for what this is gonna be. like, we think we've looked at everything and covered everything. There's not something obvious that we've missed. Now you guys figure out what are the options to finance this thing, and then all that information goes to the city council. Our committee report saying, this is what we're looking for, these are approximate costs, then the finance committee's report that says, these are the options in paying for that thing. And then in part of that is also our recommendation that, guys, this is a very high priority item, and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it
Alright.
also comes down to us is we're looking at the general fund, for instance, now taking water out of the equation here because it has its own fund, but we're looking at the general fund and has everything to do with prioritization, right? The money goes to the highest need item or the squeakiest wheel,
Yeah.
right? And so what I'm hoping is that if you guys have something that you feel, and we agree or whatever, that is super high, you need to make sure you push that urgency,
Squeaky wheel like you've
but
never met.
also are squeaky, right? Because we've got to be able to fight for and then leave it on our heads as a council to make the final decision and bear that burden of consequence.
What I'd like to do, and again, it's because of what I've done for many years, is I want to keep some of these items from becoming, it's
That's number 3 to a T, right?
it's just one lightning strike away from that becoming the number one item, but, it's all,
Well, what happens if the generator or the amperage, the lack of a 3-phase deteriorates the life expectancy of the pumps to a point where they go out,
Yeah.
we're out of water,
In the middle of
right?
summer. like
Now
we've
we
had
can
in the
flip on the
past.
Maple Canyon well, right? So we
Will that
do
be-
have a backup,
will that be enough? Yeah.
but we really would rather not get to that point, right? Especially for something as foolish as we pushed the donkey too far and it died,
Yeah.
right?
Because we didn't realize, nobody's monitoring the heart
And
rate of
getting,
the donkey.
and getting back to that other.
Or we weren't willing to buy a new donkey
Yeah.
before the one died.
Or we traded the donkey in for a horse, and we're using the horse elsewhere, getting back to our discussion earlier about
Yes.
the bond. Okay. Yeah, and again, I understand that this isn't going to get done tomorrow, next week, next year, but it just doesn't need to be stuck under the file cabinet and nobody thinks about it until it is a problem 20 years from now.
I guess my emotion comes from I know how long you guys have been having this list. And frankly, and you guys can correct me, you've been on the council far longer. I don't think you guys are squeaky enough.
Yeah, I would disagree with you, but let me explain why.
You typically do, my friend.
I mean,
Thank you, Paul.
You still doing
we
Monday nights?
had severe problems with water pipes breaking. That was a monumental effort. Again, Corbett down almost weekly. And so that was a huge outlay for us as a city. A $3 million loan. We've never had a $3 million loan. Well, I shouldn't say that. The road was 10 million, but anyway, it was a huge thing.
Yeah.
And so a lot of our focus was on that. Finishing up the 5 projects, and I'm going to bring it up. We still don't have West Loafer done. That was one of those 5 projects that was supposed to be done. So is this committee squeaky enough? I don't know if that's the right analogy. I would just say the city has a lot of priorities. We have a lot of we have a pretty big deficit, and we've just been trying to chip away at it as best we can. That's probably how I would characterize it.
Yeah,
I don't know if being any more squeaky would have changed the outcome of any of those things. There are emergency things, there's you gotta do it things, and they pretty much took care of themselves as the council looked at them and decided, let's do this, let's do that.
And to be,
But I kind of understand what you're saying. I mean, we've kind of been inactive for a bit, because of things where taken out of our hands really and decided, rightfully so, by the council as to things that needed to be done in those
Yeah.
situations, so.
Well, I know Mark's expressed frustration, and I hope I don't get in trouble for expressing this, but feeling like, it's hard when you're sitting in a position saying, I'm going through all this work and nothing ever gets done, right? And I want to make sure that one, you don't feel that way, right? To know that we are grateful for your contributions and the whole council as a whole. But I also think that there are some, and I think water's actually been fairly well taken care of, considering it does have its own fund. That helps a lot, prioritizing those priorities.
Now, let me, if I may there on that comment,
Please.
feedback goes a long ways. Okay, if it's just a letter to Santa Claus, it's, yeah, what the hell, why am I here? But if you say, yeah, hey, we've taken what you're saying into consideration, we understand it's important, but we can't do it, and here's why we can't do it. That's not coming back, okay? One of the
Yeah.
biggest rules of management is explain why. And if nobody's explaining why to you, it does get frustrating.
Well, but.
But I do understand why, that being said, yeah.
Again, I mean, I just go back to where we were about 4 years ago, was we hadn't done, other than the one down by Glen Anderson, we hadn't done any roads in years. Water was in terrible condition. The pipes were literally melting in the dirt. And then we got a large bond for our road funds. We committed our B&C road funds. And then we got a huge thing for water. So from my perspective, I don't think it's fair to say that nothing's gotten done. In
I'm
fact,
being a little
quite the
hyperbolic,
opposite,
but
quite the
yeah.
opposite.
Well,
I think a lot has gotten done.
And along those lines, I'm sorry if I interrupted you.
No, I was just gonna, the last bit was, I think all of that got done was actually driven through this committee. It was based on this committee's recommendations.
We were very fortunate, if I may say. The reason I'm saying we were very, very fortunate is we sat down, when this was just a roads committee, and said, yeah, hey, inflation's killing us. It's better for us to take out a bond. And we made that recommendation. The city went for it as best they could. We didn't get everything we wanted, but we got everything we could. Where we lucked out was that the water lines failed before we spent the money on the roads. Because if we had put all that money into the roads and then a year later the water lines failed, all that money would have been literally wasted, because we'd have had to gone back and recoup those losses. So we were very, very fortunate along those lines. That being said, now on the water lines, that, like I said, that just bubbled up. There was a lot of discussion between the engineer. There was a lot of discussion between rural water. There was a lot of discussion between the financing agencies. But I don't remember anybody in all of this discussion asking, what's the Public Works Committee think about this? I don't remember once anybody asking on that whole process. I was able to work with the engineering and with Corbett in there, and I was able to sit in on the meetings and everything, and I was able to contribute. But the committee as a whole, other than, we got the road money, there was not a lot of input from this committee on that project, to be candid.
Now, you're
But-
talking about the water pipes and all that?
Yeah,
Yeah, although Ted was on the committee at the time.
he had just left the committee. He left the committee to go to planning commission, but he was still involved extensively in it. Yeah,
Very involved.
Yes.
in-
but he was involved as an engineer, and he was able to liaison to the committee with that.
Which, if I'm being honest, I don't know that I would have understood what y'all were talking about. Anyway.
No.
So I'm grateful that it went the way it did. Once we made the decision that that was the priority, handing it off to our city engineers was the right call.
Right,
Yeah.
I know what Mark's saying, and I agree with him. And right or wrong, those, in my view, I may have a little different view than Mark does, those were city-driven projects, not committee-driven. Very little recommendation to you guys on doing this or doing that, or here's costs involved. The council and Chris kind of took the bull by the horns and went forward with what I think needed to be done. So I see it a little bit different, but I know there was very little feedback coming back to us as to, hey, and I don't know that there was, again, I guess where I differ a little bit with Mark in this is, I don't know that there was a need for feedback to us, because it was being handled by the council, by Chris, by Corbin, and by Ted, and things were moving forward in the right direction.
Now, let me explain something along those lines. I mean, I don't want to be airing laundry here or anything, but, you know, because I talked to Ted, and I talked a little bit because I knew, I can't think of his name now, Livingston from Rural Water, because I'd worked with him before, I was able to interject myself into it. I just kind of, hi, here I am, crashed the party, so to speak. And I was able to contribute some things to that were of value to us. It wasn't because somebody asked me to, it was because I did it. One example would be some of the designs. I pointed out some designs that, hey, why hasn't this been done? We should be doing this. Oh yeah, we're doing this. We were just changing the meters in lots with houses on them. We weren't looking at replacing the meters on developed lots in the road. So if we'd have done that, then we'd have to come back and we'd have been changing, 2 or 3 dozen. We'd have been doing road cuts because nobody thought of that, except I did it. Another one was when we were talking about bonding. We ended up going over our costs to the tune, I'm going to say $400,000. And we were looking at rate raising. I said, well, we don't need to raise rates here because we've missed a component here on our financing. You're looking at the bond surplus. We need to keep the bond reserve in there, but you did not calculate growth into that. Nobody thought of that. I brought it to their attention. So yes, I think we have a place and stuff like this because of our experience.
Those are Mark's things, and glad that he did that, but that wasn't the committee.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we've
But I
created
would
a
have done
committee
it.
But because of
people
his
for a reason,
position,
right? We've created with people with certain skills, right, for a reason, right? Hopefully, we're not just putting anybody willy-nilly on this council because they're bored, right? They're bringing something to the table. And I think when we say, hey, here's the plan, we've got a public works committee, let's bounce it off of them, and then, the collaboration, that's why they're here,
And
to
the point-
contribute.
What the point I'm trying to make here is, yeah, we got what I brought, but what did somebody else not bring because they weren't involved?
Oh, yeah. So, and maybe that's the better way to articulate my thoughts and feelings is we need to better utilize the strengths, right? The opinions, the thoughts, and make sure we're gleaning those and having them brought forth to the council so that we're making the best decisions that we can. Maybe it is you guys are feeling that you do have it, and maybe I'm just wrong, and that wouldn't be the first time. But, everything's moving smoothly and we're headed in the right direction. But I do think we should also learn from the past. How do we utilize the assets that we have, the resources, the intellect, the knowledge, so that we can make the best decisions that we can?
Well, I think what I'm most concerned about, learning from the past, but at this point, I'm really concerned about the future. Again, part of the reason we were able to do what we were able to do is because interest rates were so low that it was practically free money for both the water project and the roads. It was really, really cheap.
It would suck to have to do this today.
So now we've got other big priorities, other big projects that we need, and we're in a very different financial environment. How do we do this?
Yeah.
That's what that's why the faster that this committee can come up with a concrete financial estimate for both the 3-phase, which I know we've mostly got that, and then the water tank, and get that to the finance committee and see, okay, where are we? Could we actually do this? That I think is really important because I don't see interest rates going down in the next 2 years.
So, and that works both to our advantage and against us. That interesting thing is a double-edged sword. Not only does it inhibit our ability to get things done, but it also is inhibiting the developers' ability to get things done, so it is slowing the growth rate down. So we have to kind of look at it, so the thing that I was going to get back to is you were talking about the impact, the water tank and the impact fees. And I've been pounding this drum for a couple of years, the sooner we get this impact fees in place, the sooner we can start collecting them. We've had a lot of growth over the last year that there are a lot of impact fees that could have been collected, haven't been collected. So now we've got to pay for that out of user rates. It's as simple as that. So I'm just good, and working, that's something that, I'll bring as a citizen, not as a committee member if need be. We really need to, if we're going to do those, we need to get them in place. The sooner the better, because the sooner we get them in place, the sooner we can start collecting.
Mark,
I believe they are.
No,
Mark, before you go down that road,
Yes,
actually, you're in a worse position. I mean, technically, you're in a worse position now with having done the impact fee study, because the impact fee overall has gone down, because in the past, we've been collecting more than we could justify. So, I mean, that's just,
and that is not a good thing either, because if you can't
Correct.
justify the fee, you can, and we were in that situation. We had to pay back like $700,000-800,000 worth of impact fees because we didn't collect them properly. And the developers come in there and they said, hey, you know what, you guys, you didn't do this right. So that's a risk we're at. If we weren't doing it right and we were over collecting, that's a risk. That's a liability that the city's in right now. If somebody caught wind of that, to be candid, and wanted to make a stink out of it, they can say, hey, you forced us to pay this much when we should have only paid this much. There's going to be a judgment against the city. It's happened before. So,
we're there.
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's why the city's trying to be as careful and cautious as possible right now and not jump into something before everything is known, all the ducks are lined up, and we feel very confident that we're going forward in a correct.
And again, what I'm saying is it's never too soon to do that, is what I'm saying. Yeah. So anyway, we kind of beat that all to death. I was going to go back. I got just a couple more items, and then whatever else you guys want to have. Another holdover from a couple of years ago is sewer operations. We really just have we have it going in. Basin City has agreed to take care of it. There's been some conflict there and some disagreements, and it's not getting done. Okay, the fact that it's somebody else's responsibility and it's not doing it doesn't change the fact that it needs to be done. Something needs to be done because you don't notice sewer until you notice sewer. I think I said that last week. And when you notice it, it's too late.
Well, then you start filling the sewer bucket into
the irrigation.
Yeah.
I got you. So that's something, it's just something simple, some simple steps we can take. And again, this may be an operations thing and not a committee thing, but
Yeah.
it needs to be looked at. You can lift the manholes and look and make sure that you haven't had any floods. You can take, for example, hydrant flushing. Technically we should have a plan for flushing the hydrants to get the sand and grit, whatever might be in the system out. When you do that, you can actually design it to where you flush them into the sewer. And
That'll sound.
But isn't that, Corbett, correct me, isn't that Payson's responsibility?
it is, but if it's not getting done,
Well, but then the solution is not to us to do it. It's to work with Payson
to make sure,
to make sure that it does.
but,
get
but
But what
I'm
we
just
need to
saying,
do is actually work with Payson to get it, because they're wanting us to take over. They're
Yeah.
pushing us hard to do it, and they're gonna make it painful.
I'm just saying in the
for us if we don't.
meantime,
So what we need to do is talk with Payson, see what type of rate decreases we can get in negotiation so that we take over the maintenance, and thus it will get done.
if you're riding a bicycle and the
We don't
bicycle,
want to take over the maintenance.
Well, they're gonna
If we
force it
have to
on
pay a
us.
little bit more, we're better off doing that. We've got a one-man sewer operation right now. We don't have any equipment or anything else to do that.
Right.
Corbett, what are they trying to do to us?
Payson does not want to do it.
What are they trying to force us on it, though? There's a contractual way they can dump it on us, correct?
Correct. Yeah, either party can break the contract with 1 year notice to the other party.
And that's what they've threatened.
Yes.
When you say break the contract, does that mean they'll stop taking our flows? They'll stop taking any more flows? I mean, how, that's,
They can.
you know, I mean, if we've paid impact fees into the treatment plant and into the collection line, I don't know how they can legally stop us, but I can see where they could stop us from getting any more.
Or maintaining.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
But-
they can refund your impact fees. They can cut you off and turn you out onto your own. Or we can hat in hand, tail between our legs, go back to them and try to work it out. But we don't have any bargaining power.
I think what Ben's saying is, and Wayne as well, is we ought to have that conversation with Payson sooner rather than later.
And that's, you know, I'm just saying it's a priority to make sure it's getting done. I'm not saying that we need to do it. I was kind of ad-libbing on that or totalizing it. There's steps we can do in the meantime.
Okay.
What I was gonna say is, you know, if you're in a bicycle lane and you get run over by a truck, you know, you're the one that ends up worse, you know, hurt or worse. And your argument is, well, I had the right of way. What good does that do if you're laying in a hospital or a morgue?
Aren't you all things sewer?
Yes. So it's on my list.
Okay, so I'm just saying. And then the only other,
Having that conversation would be super
That's
useful.
almost.
It's on our
mayor-
list, yeah.
mayor Kind of issue. I
That-
don't know how
that-
comfortable Brent feels, but that's where it's gonna get ultimately
that's probably,
resolved at.
that's probably the level it'll happen at, is mayor to
Well,
mayor.
I'll probably go with Corbett to negotiate, or at least to start that conversation.
And you were gonna give me a copy of the contract.
Oh, I did, didn't I? I
You,
said that.
you did, yeah,
Yeah, I haven't gotten one either. Corbett, do you have a copy of that contract?
Someplace, yeah.
Okay, can you email that to me tomorrow?
No promises, but I'll try.
Yeah, and I'll probably come harass you anyway. That's typically how it works.
Yeah, I know.
I'm just saying, I just hate to see a backup because we are,
No,
Yeah.
and I think that's kind of another purpose here. It has to do definitely with public works. And it's an issue that needs to be addressed. And maybe there's, at this point, no money or, no, but it's items that need to be,
So there's kind of a companion issue that needs to be addressed on this, and that is connections.
Yeah, we have to rewrite our ordinance.
So I think we need to look at anyone who can connect should have to. Which is
put
gonna
some
be super
standard there,
painful.
or if they meet
There's
this
some
standard, then they
expectation,
have to.
yeah.
yeah, I know there was, or at least I don't know, my understanding is there were some promises made to some folks in the beginning that said, if you don't want to connect, you don't have to, or something along there. I don't know the whole story there because I wasn't around
It
for
was
it.
optional.
It was optional, okay.
Yeah, I think we need to change that.
Well, we've talked about a few, axes that are over our neck right now today.
Yeah,
That's one that's really big. When
they're
they
all,
force us to-
unfortunately, they're all, you know, here's our list of number ones, and they're all number ones. I get it, you know. So,
Well, some of them I think are a little more urgent, but
you know, and
the
then,
sewer's one we can't forget, and I think.
you'll have
it's
to,
something
you'll have to
we
look it up
should-
sometime, men's list of number one, men's number one list. You'll have to read that on the internet when you're bored someday. Look that up. Okay, so it's got some good stuff on it, okay? And then, safety is another concern that we talked about. 2 years ago, we were going to have it put into the, personnel, handbook, thank you, as well as, you know, personnel plan, you know, check, that we could, this is something, again, we can probably, get a boilerplate from the leagues of city and town or the trust or whatever. You know, the challenge I see there personally is if you don't have a set of safety precaution or safety procedures and somebody gets hurt, you know, again, it's liability. If you have procedures in place and they're not followed, at least you've said, hey, you were taught this, you signed it, you signed the book saying you got it and you read it and you understood it, you know, kind of, so there's some things. I mean, you got Corbett, you know, out 2:30 in the morning on a water line by himself in a ladder, 8, 10 feet in the deep. What if he falls? What if there's a cave in? There's nothing to cover that I'm aware of. And if there is, I apologize. Yeah, but if there isn't, there needs to be, again, somebody's going to get hurt and now you got $1 million lawsuit that, guess what?
Yeah, I was talking to Jody about this today.
So those are the things I put, you talked about the water tank. I mean, anything else, these were just kind of some stuff we discussed over the last couple of years and I kind of rolled into discussion items for tonight. I'm sure there's plenty more that we can talk about. I'm wide open.
So here, something on those lines, Jody pulled up a list, 2021 list that had been done of public facility things to do with. So not looking to go over them tonight, but let's keep those in mind as well as new lists are put together. Maybe some of these things have been addressed already and maybe some of them haven't. But we ought to maybe do some merging with these, Mark, and as you look at them and decide, yeah, this needs to be done.
Snow removal,
So
that's an ongoing
anyway,
every night.
You have no idea.
So you can look at this. So now,
So,
we've
so
been here
here's
for,
the other thing, Mark.
yeah.
On the safety one in particular, who owns that? Who's gonna do that work?
These are good questions.
So
Yeah.
for me, it's useful if we actually make an assignment. So we already told Ben he's in charge of 4. Okay? So that's his assignment. He's gonna figure out how to get together with Payson, whether we bring the mayors in, whatever. But Ben's gonna be the guy that's gonna drive that over the next 6 to 8 months. Who's gonna drive number 5?
I don't mind driving number 3 if we wanted to on this part. Corbett is actually looking at getting my certificates reinstated so that I can start if he's got a town for whatever reason, I can take the well readings, I can do this. So we're looking at either getting me reinstated or seeing if I can work under his certificate. I know he's reached out to the state and the state has sent him some information. He hasn't got back to him yet. So that's one of the things I'm looking at doing. Like I said, I don't mind doing it, but I don't want a job. So that's kind of where I'm at, but I don't mind helping, a couple of times a month is no big deal. So I can take
You're
number
preaching to
3.
the choir. Here's King volunteer here.
Yeah. So, the safety, that's a big one. I agree. How does that get done? Is there a boilerplate that we can get from the trust that says it do that and we can look at it, modify it? It might be maybe we do as a committee, we look at.
Yeah, even when it's done as a committee, which I agree with doing, there has to be a driver.
Agreed.
If you don't have a driver, it's never gonna get done.
Is that something maybe Paul could tackle?
That may not be, I'll ask him.
Yeah,
I'd say, with his.
That's kind of his background. He understands the legal aspects of it.
Mhm.
Again, I just don't want to see, this whole thing with this stupid house up there, what could we have done to prevent that? I just don't want to see see it happen again. I come from, again, my environment is safety. And it's not cheap to be safe. I'll say that. And as a one-man band, there's some risk there. I just hate to see Corbett or somebody else get hurt, and we
Well,
don't have a policy.
What was that, Corbett?
Who else is there?
there's Craig,
You
and
could,
you got two part-time employees that are out a lot. Are you tongue in cheek or are you serious?
Yes, no, I'm just hassling you.
Okay.
but yeah, I agree. I think Paul could tackle that one.
I'll just put his name in a question mark by it.
And we need to give some thought too to that one, to fire. And I think, it seems to me like Doral has some safety responsibility.
All that doors.
So incorporate, if we're looking at, maybe we need to do them in sections or segments or whatever, but let's not forget the fire component.
Yeah, and I think
emergency management.
a lot of those could probably dovetail. You could do a lot of training, things like, for example, a couple of examples of just small things, that little things would have made a difference on. And I talked about this before. There was a guy killed in Riverton because he crawled into a manhole by himself, and passed out because there was no oxygen in there. The rust and pipes and everything will create a sulfite gas that will replace the oxygen, and you'll literally suffocate. Had there been somebody there with him, or if they'd taken an air monitor, just small things like that, it would have saved the city of Riverton a lot of money and a lot of trouble. And I remember the mayor of Riverton, or it's one of the heads up there, saying, we dropped the ball on this. We haven't been doing this right. A lot of other people aren't doing this right. We are going to be doing this right from now on. But it took somebody getting killed for that to happen. It's like somebody gets killed before they put a stoplight in. I'd like to prevent that from happening before somebody gets killed.
Well, I completely agree. And that was why Jody was talking about it today. While she was in Hawaii, they had a public employee of Hawaii there that had a front end loader cut his two arms off because they had it holding something and the hydraulics bled off, and right. And so there are some things that we just need to have, and they're standard. Everybody's got them already that we can take from and run with. But I agree. And we probably need to pick up some things. So there is probably some money associated with that, like an oxygen reader or, something along those lines, just to make sure that we are safe.
I mean, technically, by OSHA standards or USHA standards, because we're not Oakville or Utah State, if he's more than chest deep, he should be in a trench box. Trench boxes are $4,000 or $5,000, but that's what the law says to do. Is it practical for us? No, it's not practical for a lot of folks, and a lot of folks aren't doing it. But I'm just saying that the risk is out there.
Well, but knowing that, we can play, let's make a deal with Salem and see if we can get a trench
That may
box
be
or
an
whatever.
option. That may be an option.
But we shouldn't diminish the standards just because
We don't have the money.
we're small.
Yeah.
This is one of those things we don't know what we don't know, almost. And if we get into this and see, okay, this is the safety standards that we want to adhere to, what do we need by way of equipment to facilitate that?
This could take number 5 and jump it really fast up the list.
Yeah, one accident, and then it's on top of the list, right? Any one of these things could jump to the top of the list like that, just from one little incident. That's the whole thing.
I'll take number 1.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a great idea.
Work with Corbin, stuff like that. too.
Wayne already knows that
Yeah.
real well.
No better person for that job, when you do an excellent work there. And on the Broad Hollow well, yeah, maybe we just know it's out there. We got to know it's out there, and we got to be prepared for it. Do we have what it takes to do it? If you can get to the bottom of our discussion earlier, you can bring him up to speed if you want. That'd be nice to know. I mean, not that it's going to change anything.
Yeah, I did. I got a hold of Chris, and he did say that there was 254,000 plus some change that was excess to that, and it was spent.
It was spent on water lines. I know it was.
So there is no money there.
Are you saying then that all the savings that we have gathered over?
Just the balance of the loan.
There was that 900,
Only
there was that
that.
900,
Okay.
there was that
Nothing to do with
That's the
900,000,
extent of the
it was like
instrument.
$900,000 bond for the well, of which 700 and some change was spent on the well, and the rest was spent on the road projects instead of being used to complete the well project.
Because I clearly asked him, I said, so that means we could actually put 3-phase power and a new tank up there with that money. And he said, I'm confused. We spent that money. What do you mean?
Yeah.
I said, so you're saying that is now a zero sum?
I
He said,
remember
"Yes."
that, and I remember crying foul
So-
on it.
But from our prior conversations, there may be
Potentially.
appreciation money somewhere that could offset some of those
I was
costs.
gonna say, it's been 2 years since we've gone down that path, so we've been collecting 2 years worth of money. I don't know how much money that is, but yes, we purposely spent all of that money, and part of that was driven by the citizens being concerned that we were bonding for money when we had money. And so we were like, okay, we'll spend most of our money from the water fund, and then combine it with the loan to make up the difference, and then redo the pipes. So it was an intentional decision.
And we've got to figure out phase two.
That's,
Got to get phase
that's
two
another one
done.
out there too. And I left that one off here. Potentially, we can talk about that. I know we had that on prior priority list, but
Carrie's currently working on some grants, so we can use our ARPA funds to do matching, and yeah, that's a rabbit hole for another day, but I think that'll really drive whether phase two happens. Is that kind of how you're gleaning it?
Yeah, I mean, I am, but I will also say that's what we thought last year too.
Well, I
And we
think that's.
came
what
Hey, here's
we're
the-
gonna
And we
do.
came away, with nothing.
here's the thing. Phase
Yeah.
two's getting done.
It
It's a
is.
choice of, is it when we want to do it or when the system says we're going to do it?
Is it another $75 bump each month to all of our water bills? Or not, right? And if we can go that same route, I don't know.
Of the bonding and all that. I mean, kind of, yes. I mean, I think we left them, the Rural Water Association, on really good terms. I'm just going to remind everybody, the reason we haven't had a $75 bump was not because that's the money we needed. It was because that met the threshold for the median income of the city. So it was what they required for us in order to get their money. We had to have it at the
Median,
median
we-
income
Yeah,
level.
it's based on the city's ability to pay it. I think it's like, I can't remember, I think it's 2% for water and 4% for sewer, or the other way around, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And that number was what we put us into that range.
And that's why I asked if we can do it again, is I don't know if they'll, because of that requirement, if we tap that out.
Yeah.
And I don't know what I'm really talking
And
about,
What out?
that medium income, like that number.
No,
And
we
we-
had to.
I know, I'm saying, did we,
Yes.
is there more tap we can do there?
Actually,
That's my question.
there may be, what it may happen on the new one is they'll look at the current Magi
Right.
and affordability, and they'll say, okay, you can afford this much now, and then the more billionaires we get moving in, obviously, the higher that number is going to go.
Have we had any of those yet? We got some billionaires?
Just
Well,
the one on Highline.
I kind of joke, I said, I'm trying to compete with all the billionaires, 30-something billionaire startups.
There's no billionaires on Highline, I can promise you that.
But anyway, what that does is, after we pay our maximum affordability, we can get grant after we pay all we can afford. So it may be that we have to kick it up another 15, 20 bucks a month, and then that'll be a part of the payment, and then grant will kick in after that. So any cost above that can be considered grant, but we have to, as was just pointed out, we have to pay the maximum affordable amount that we can afford before the kick in grant.
Corbett, if we get a billionaire on Highline that's in that White House, I promise I'll bankroll all of this plus anything else you can put on the list, okay?
All right.
Well, tell your wife to stop telling everybody that there's a billionaire on Highline.
Yeah. Promise you she ain't.
So we're all gonna
Just Corbett that's doing that.
we're all gonna pitch in and buy you a lottery ticket.
Yeah, hey.
It needs to be at least $2 billion jackpot because they'll take half of it.
More than that, maybe about 60 to 70%.
Okay, so it needs to be 3 billion. Because the end result still has to have a B on it.
Okay, ZK, anything else? I guess the next question I'm gonna be is, we've all talked about this, how do we relay this to the council? Is that something you guys want to do? Is that something you want me to make another report? How do we do this? Where do we go from here?
So we typically do and have done in the past, relayed this to the council during council meetings when we do our reports. So we haven't over the last year because we haven't met. But I mean, yeah, I mean, we can make this report,
Okay.
Or you can present it.
or you're welcome.
What do you guys prefer? I mean, if you want me to do it, I don't have a problem doing it, but I don't want to step on your toes, and I want, or.
There are no toes to be stepped on.
I personally
But are we
think there's
categorizing?
value in you presenting it.
Okay,
are we categorizing all these as number one priority? Or what? We're just talking, focusing on the
Min's
tank
list of rules. What
on the phase 3 right now?
what I'll do is let me go ahead and write this up as best I can, send it out to you guys, and we can massage it, get it back to me, and then we can present it. When, do we want to try and present it next week? Is that pushing it?
Yeah, because they've got a full calendar next
Okay,
week.
so we'll look for, what, it'd be the 1st of April? No, it'd be the
It's probably
second one, April.
the
April
last
20
week here,
April
they're
28th.
gonna,
Or
it's the next week's the budget thing, and the week after that is a town hall.
Yeah.
So those are gonna be difficult to get into,
So we're,
so
we'll be
first of
into
April, or
we'll be
second
into
week of
April.
April.
Okay. So, and that's fine. you know.
I don't know. I think some of this information is going to be needed
That's kind of what I'm wondering about too.
For the budget,
for the budget.
When's the budget hearing?
Well,
Budget
we're
hearing's not
doing,
Till August, I'm sorry, when is your budget meetings is what I meant to say for council? Budget, I don't,
I can't remember.
meetings
What did
slash
we decide
meetings.
there, David?
maybe I can have something ready by then and present it. too.
We decided on, I want to say the first week in April would be the budget meeting during council meeting.
I thought it was this next meeting, David. Maybe I'm in error though, for your budget meeting.
Well, you might be right.
It's our town hall meeting.
It's on the
The week,
14th, right?
2 weeks after that.
So the 14th is the town hall. 2 weeks after that is, I don't have anything allocated here.
Well, that would be the
Um,
28th of March. I could probably have, that's, it's 3 weeks. Will I be gone that day? Is that, no, that's Tuesday?
I thought the first 2 meetings in March, I thought one was budget and the other was town hall.
It seems like I heard the town hall was on the 14th.
Yeah,
It is.
I can't remember. I'd have to go look at my notes.
Maybe give Jody a call tomorrow.
Well, I'll go ahead, kind of type this up, and,
Next available.
Can I, Mark,
yes, sir.
can I just ask that when you guys start doing this kind of stuff, will you at least talk to me first? I just don't want to see you waste a lot of time. For instance, I've got 80% of the conduit up to the well from the Broad Hollow intersection. I mean, we worked some things out. Wendy and I worked some things out. I got Strawberry Electric, or the power company, to accept the old water line as a sleeve. It took a lot of work to get that done. Ben's familiar with some of this because he's the one that graded out that fill material so that the power company would accept the conduit based on depth. As far as the safety stuff, I've got an air monitor in the truck. It's been probably 4 or 5 months since I've used it. It probably needs to be recalibrated. I've got fresh air fans. I mean, it's not like I'm just being willy-nilly. And so-
It's not so much that you're not doing it or that we didn't. I was just kind of using examples because I didn't really have any solid stuff I was just saying, just if we got a good safety plan, good, let's just make sure it's written down. If we're doing, and agree with what you're saying. And along the lines, back to the conduit, is the single phase running up the same path that the 3-phase would be running up now?
No, the single phase comes up from Deep Forest. The 3-phase will come up from Broad Hollow.
So we'd almost have to run 3 separate cables. No,
Well,
we couldn't
yeah,
get- We couldn't
but
get
you-
away with just 2 cables.
No, but you run them all in the same conduit.
Yeah, I don't think we can do any of this, Corbett, without
Yeah.
your
I mean,
extreme
I,
assistance.
You know, I said-
Are you gonna be working on number two, then, Mark?
yeah, I'll work on
That's the
number
one
2.
with the,
I'll put myself and Corbett on that. So, and again, I understand that these are probably long lead items, but again, I just don't
Yeah.
want us to forget about it.
Well, I think some of them are, or let's move on it now. I think the safety needs to be an ASAP item, right? With the, there's months of work there, but it needs to be started now. I think everything else,
So,
we
well,
just
some
need to
of
start
them are
and start
budget
working.
issues that may need to grow. I mean, in other words, this coming year budget, there
Yeah.
may need to be money set aside for the wells and so forth for the following year, if that's
Yeah.
when they decide
Right.
to do it. So maybe the work won't get done now, but the planning needs to be.
That's exactly
Done.
right. These are, they're not priorities if nobody knows their priorities. And that's what we want to do is, does it need to be done today? Yes, it does. Can it be done today? Probably not. How best to do this now that we as a group know about it? If nobody knows about it, it's never going to get done. And Corbett, I text you all the time, ask you questions, so I'm not afraid to do that. But I do have a question. When's the next time you plan on meeting with Ted?
I don't have anything scheduled.
Okay,
Ted used to come in on Wednesdays, but his schedule's changed, as I understand it, and he's coming in on Tuesdays now. He spends a day here doing his Jones and DeMille things as well as city things.
right, he kind of uses the city office.
Right.
And I know I don't know exactly the relationship. I know he's done that. He tries to use the city office to work on city items, but at the same time,
He's doing Jones and
yeah,
DeMille
there's
and fire stuff.
yeah, fire
too.
stuff. So,
So that was today. He
because
was in today.
I'd like to touch bases with him a little bit on the impact fee stuff.
Yeah, if you just text him and say, hey, when
Well,
you'll be there,
As
he'll,
long as, what I don't want to do is I don't want to put him in a position of billable hours to talk to me. If he's billing Corbett, that's staff issues, that's fine.
Talk to Jody.
Yes,
Yeah, I was going to say, talk to Jody and get a copy of the impact fee study that was done and the analysis that was presented to the city council.
this is the brand new one?
Yeah,
Okay, I'll just talk to Jody on that. Perfect.
she'll know the status. I think Jones and DeMille was again considering some other things to make sure that we were all inclusive of the information that went into the impact fee study. So I think my understanding is they're either through or about through with that, cleaning that up, and then we'll present the other part of that to the council.
Could you be confusing the sewer impact fee study with the water impact fee study or vice versa?
Well, I'm thinking we've got,
Because they were doing both of them.
yeah, so that's what I'm thinking, whatever we have, because they're going to be two different studies. I know that the sewer impact fee study, is that a new study with Basin, or is that a separate study?
It's a separate study with
So
the
this-
city.
So this would be a collection study for within the city?
Yes.
Or a distribution,
Nothing to do with Payson.
nothing to do with Basin, so we would go into their trunk, okay.
You were right. It's collection. We don't distribute sewer.
Yeah, well, we might be if we don't get, that's kind of my point.
well, there is
Well,
that
hey-
one manhole at the top of the line that's not used that we're currently distributing from, right?
They've got a huge, hole they're digging down there.
They would love it. We just,
Pipe into there and
Little toilet right on top of it.
Fortunately, it runs downhill.
we could stick a honey bucket sign up front. You got Big Maple Canyon syrup stuff and then honey bucket.
Speaking of Honey Bucket, the house across the street from me, the Super Walmart he's building, his was upside down in the snow after that windstorm the other night.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Those are fun to come into afterwards.
Somebody stood it up, it wasn't me. I see nothing. Okay, if that's kind of everything, any other items?
I don't have anything else.
I don't either.
On the next meeting date, just as needed, how do we want to do that? I think that,
That'd be my vote. Do you want to schedule something, David? Or just as needed for our next meeting?
I think schedule something, probably right. It'd be good to do it right after the budget meeting. And it can be a shorter meeting where we just basically say, okay, here's what we got budget wise.
so that would,
Do we need to help with any of the planning or anything for that?
so depending on when the budget meeting is, that would either be April or May.
Well, the budget kind of gets finalized more in the June.
In the June timeline, yeah.
So I think sometime in June would be better.
Okay, this first Tuesday in June,
That'd be fine.
as far as I know, I'm available. July's out. Yeah, okay, first June. So next meeting would be June, whatever day that is.
We talk about the which Tuesday? First Tuesday?
First Tuesday would be June 6th.
Mark, did I send you a copy of the 2024 proposed Public Works budget?
If you did, I have not seen it. Doesn't mean you didn't send it, it just means I haven't seen it. So if
I'd
Resend-
really like your input on that. I'll
you
try
sent me,
to-
actually, you did send me something, and I did pick out the need to pay for the well out of it. Was that the same budget?
I think so.
Yeah, then I did get that, yeah, because I remember we didn't account for the Maple Canyon well in that.
Right.
So yes, I did look at that and everything, so I do have it, I can review that as well.
Okay. I'd just like to get your feedback, talk to you about it, see how, see what you think as far as the numbers and the priority as far as next year's workload.
Okay? And that being said, I'm open for adjournment.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Meeting adjourned at, let's just call it 9:00.
That was a doozy.
That was so much for that being a short, quick one, right?
Well,
It wasn't that long.
See you, brother.
Hey, you know, I remember when I was at Eagle Mountain, I had to be to Las Vegas for a seminar that morning. It was Wednesday morning, okay? And